What's up, folks? Welcome to Alchemy Horizons Baldur's Gate. Common and uncommon set review here. We're going to be doing commons and uncommons today, rares and mythics tomorrow. If you're watching this in the future, yes, we know Alex is muted. You're going to want to head on over, if you're watching it on Twitch, head on over to YouTube, Lord's Limited YouTube page, or the Limited Level Ups podcast feed. We'll have everything out there for you well before the set is available to draft in a little over a week. I think a week from tomorrow. We're doing this on June 29th. The full spoiler just dropped. Here's how we're going to be doing the set review today. Commons and uncommons. We'll start with the gold cards. We'll go to the colorless cards. Then we'll go in Wooburg order. Within each of those, when we get to Wooburg, we'll be sorting cards by rarity. So commons, uncommons, and then rares, mythics tomorrow. And within commons and uncommons, we'll be sorting them not by alphabetical, but by mana value. It really helps us to get a sense of just the curve of the cards and the flow and how colors synergize with themselves, yada, yada, yada. And I am remiss. I often will introduce Alex at the start, and I'm now just mumbling and just going on and on without saying I'm being joined by the number one card evaluator in the biz, Mr. Alex Nikolic, aka Crodel. Alex, what's up, buddy?
Oh, not much. How's it going, Ethan?
I'm so excited to be doing this. You've been poking and prodding me to do this for the past few weeks. You're like, are we going to do it? And I was like, no.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, come on, it'll be fun. I was like, no, I don't want to. And you're like, come on, what do you think? And I was like, all right, I'll do it.
The people are asking for it, Ethan.
The people are asking for it. Who am I to deny people the content that they crave? So let's get right into it here.
Actually, before we get into it,
let's not get into it.
Say what the set is, because I think it's a little confusing for some people.
Sure, yes. You've been championing, trying to clarify this on Twitter quite a bit, so go for it.
Yeah, so this is Alchemy Horizons Baldur's Gate, and this is not the Commander set Baldur's Gate. It is pretty much, for our purposes as limited players, just a normal limited set on Arena. It is considered by Wizards, it's going to be the format, quote unquote, for the summer. There's going to be a monthly qualifier with this set as the format. It's going to be the best of three format, which is kind of the big, official, this is your format. So for this, we're just treating this like we would a Streets of New Capenna or a Neon Dynasty, and that's pretty much what this set is. Now, of course, there's some alchemy elements, and this is the first time that digital-only mechanics are going to be in a set for main consumption. So there's going to be some of that, and we're going to get to that, explain all of that. But for the purposes of what we're doing here today, we're just going to be treating it like a normal set review.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with the 10, as they are referred to, signpost uncommons here, starting with Liara of the Flaming Fist. This is red-white for a 2/2 legendary creature human soldier. At the beginning of each combat, each creature you control gets +1/+1 until end of turn, if it has the same name as another creature you control or a creature card in your graveyard. Aha! And you can also pay 1 red-white to have another target non-token creature you control gain first strike and double team. That's the double card thing happening here. Until end of turn, activate only as a sorcery and only once.
Yeah, so red-white's mechanic in this set is double team, which is one of the 3 brand new, spanking new, shiny mechanics. And what double team is a creature with double team, when it attacks, you get a copy of that card into your hand. You conjure it into your hand. This is the alchemy digital side of things. You don't have to draft that second copy. It just goes into your hand. So say you have a 2-mana 2/1, that thing attacks, you get a 2-mana 2/1 in your hand. But the thing is, then the copies lose double team. So you don't keep looping them. You don't keep chaining them. It's just a one-time deal. So kind of a nice little combat mechanic to make it, or not a combat mechanic, but a way for a red-white attacking deck to have some gas in the mid-game. You don't just gas out where your blue-green opponents are like drawing a bunch of cards. You get to draw multiple creatures and keep the forces going.
Sorry, I was reading chat. Did you also mention that once you conjure that card, both of the copies lose double team?
Yes, that's
excellent.
Right. Yeah,
okay, great. And I think important to note that is then a card, right? If you haven't played with these kinds of effects before, you will often, I think my instinct at least was to think of them as tokens. So that like, okay, then when the conjured copy dies or whatever, it's gone forever. No, it's just a card. Now it exists for that game. If it goes to the graveyard, you can recur it, whatever. Not that red-white is going to often have access to that. Anyway, so we've explained this new mechanic. What do you think about Liara of the Flaming Fist?
I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Not, backbreaking or anything, but the fact that you can at some point pay for your best thing to get another copy of that thing into your hand is pretty nice. I think the first part there, each creature with the same name, or each creature you control gets +1/+1 for each creature of the same name in the graveyard. Yeah, I think it's like a minor little bonus. I think most of the value of this card is this being a 2-mana 2/2 that can copy one of your best things in the battlefield. So that's kind of cool. Worth noting, it does say only once, so you're not going to be able to get a bunch of copies. Just you have to choose the best thing to copy. You're going to get a copy of that.
So the only once is once per game. Is that how we're reading that?
Once per game. That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. And I assume that, like, let's say you have multiple Liaras, that if your first Liara has activated this, your second Liara will not be able to.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Once per
Oh,
game.
sorry. Well, your second Liara will be able to.
Will be able to. So
card.
just once for this card.
Yeah, once for this card.
Interesting. All right. Yeah, this seems like a pretty solid B to me.
Yeah, I think so too. One of the things about Double Team plays well with removal, right? So you can, one of the things you have to jump through, the hoop you have to jump through is you go, well, I need my profitable attack on my creature, which, you need a trick or a removal spell. Those all just naturally play well in a red-white aggressive deck. So yeah, I like this card. I think a solid B is about right for me.
Yeah, for sure. All right, what's next?
Next up, we have Mintara the Absolute. So this is 4 mana, 2 white-black for a 2/4. It says, creatures you control get +X+O, where X is Mintara of the Absolute's intensity. And it says starting intensity 0. So we'll get back to that in a second. Whenever one or more permanents you control leave the battlefield, perpetually increase Minthara's intensity and the intensity of cards named Minthara in your hand, library, and graveyard each by 1. This triggers only once each turn. So it's very complex, but really, when you boil it down, it's not too complex. Starting intensity is just a way to count things, right? It's just saying, as long as this thing exists in the game, it's going to go up by 1 for each time something leaves. Then next time it's 2. And then, if you have multiple copies of this, all the copies in your library will gain that. So the way this plays out, right, is you play Minthara, something leaves the battlefield and ticks up, your creatures get +1 attack. Next turn, something else leaves, ticks up. While this is on the battlefield, your creatures get +2 attack. So this black-white archetype, what this is playing into is when something leaves the battlefield. A little bit like Revolt from Aether Revolt, if you played with that. So that's black-white's thing. It's kind of a minor thing, to be honest. This is kind of one of the only real payoffs, but that's kind of what's happening here.
Yeah, for sure, right? We don't have... So a lot of... If you'll notice once we get to the commons and uncommons, a lot of the cards are reprints. I'd say about maybe 40-ish are about reprints from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. And we have about half new Signpost uncommons and half reprint Signpost uncommons from that set. So we're not venturing into any dungeons here in black-white. Instead, we have Minthara here. It's pretty interesting. This will also trigger on your opponent's turn too, right? So like if you block and your thing dies, or whatever, if you have some sort of way for a thing to leave the battlefield. Otherwise, this will also uptick. So you can potentially, in a turn cycle, get 2 counters on this. I don't know, 4 mana, 2/4. It's not great, I don't think.
Yeah, this seems kind of just, fine to me. I mean, I don't think there's too much go-wide tokeny stuff. Given all your creatures +1 attack or +2 attack over the course of a turn cycle or 2, it's kind of nice, but I don't think this is anything that special.
And she grows herself, right? So, like, if its intensity is 1, then now it's a 3/4, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, I think this is a fine card. I'd probably just give this a C+.
Yeah, I think C+ sounds good to me. More of a reward than a reason for getting into black-white. Next up, we have Kaga, Shadow Archdruid. 2 black-green for a 1/4 legendary creature elf druid. When it attacks, it gains Death Touch until end of turn, and you mill 2 cards. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a permanent spell from among cards in the graveyard that were put there from your library this turn.
Yeah, so black-green's kind of got this, as per usual, very light graveyard theme.
Random graveyard stuff.
Yeah. and so, I think a lot of times when we're in the space of, well, this deck has a light theme that's maybe not that synergistic, you really want to evaluate the cards in a vacuum more than anything. So how much do we like a 1/4 for 4 mana that attacks, gets Death Touch, and then, maybe cast some cards out of your grave? It's not so bad. Worth noting that it doesn't have to be the cards that you mill with Kaga. It can be a creature that dies in combat this turn, you can cast out of the grave. Your opponent's not.
I don't think so. I don't think so, sir.
Graveyard
that were put there from your library this turn.
Good point. Yes, thank you very much. I did not read this card properly. So it gets a little bit worse then.
Yeah.
Your opponent's not going to want to block a 1/4 Death Touch, but they also don't have much incentive to. It's not like taking 1 isn't that bad.
Well, it's not that bad, except that you do threaten to perpetually get value out of this.
Totally.
I don't would this have been so bad if it just had Death Touch all the time? Like, it's a 4 mana 1/4. This rate is really bad. It's only going to do the thing if it attacks. And then, you can just block with, 2 2/2s, and then you're trading this with a 2/2. Now, I assume, again, and I apologize, this full spoiler just dropped. All I had time to do was, make the slideshow, put the cards in our spreadsheet, get ready. So I'm reading these for the first time with all of you. I'm assuming that... And we have all these digital rules. I'm assuming that even if this dies in combat, can I still, get the value post-combat, or does this have to be in play for me to be able to cast the thing that was milled?
I am reading this as this is Kaga's ability, right? So it's just like it's not a digital thing at all.
Okay, so this has to be in place. So
yep.
This is quite a bit worse, I would say.
I think so too.
I think this is just not good.
Yeah, I am not a fan of this. I think this is like a, I don't know, a C minus, D plus.
C minus, yeah. I don't love this card.
Here's a old favorites.
Baby come back. Baby come back.
Maybe have some some flashbacks to the past format. So we've got Kalane here, Reclusive Painter, black red for a 1/2. When it enters the battlefield, you make a treasure token. Other creatures you control enter the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on them for each mana from treasure you spent to cast them.
So for fans or loathers of Adventures in the Forgotten Realms, Red Black was the S tier deck, whether you were doing Steel and Sack, which is alive and well-ish in this new set, but you could also do some treasure shenanigans. Alex, with your first look through the spoiler, what is your sense of how reminiscent Red Black is looking from AFR?
I would say about half of the pieces are here. So you've got, just to flash forward a little bit, we've got the Grim Bounty, we've got the Deadly Dispute, we've got Sepulchre Ghoul for the the cheap sacrifice outlet. The active treason effect is 4 mana though this turn, so that changes things a little bit, and I do think it is a worse card. So I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see just how reminiscent this archetype is of the first time we saw it. I do think it is worth noting that there's enough different cards in this set, like that are different from the original Adventures in the Forgotten Realms D&D set. I do think it's going to feel like a very different format. So plop this deck into basically what is a new format. It's not going to be just this more of the same. There's going to be hints of it, but I'm optimistic that we won't just be another 3 months of Red Black Steel Sack being the best deck.
Yeah, for sure. So what are your thoughts on Kalane here? I think it still looks pretty darn good to me.
Yeah, this was good the first time. Synergy aside, just a 1/2 for 2 mana that makes a treasure and then makes one of your other creatures big. Like that's pretty nice. So I think with synergy included here, I'd probably give this a B.
Yeah, I'm in for B on Kalane as well. Next up, we have Corlessa Scale Singer. I'm a green-blue player at heart, and I am always a sucker for whatever the green-blue uncommon is, and this does actually look kind of sweet. This is green-blue for a 1/4 legendary creature, Dragon Bard. You may look at the top card of your library anytime, and you may cast dragon spells from the top of your library. So a 2-mana 1/4, a good little roadblock there. And there do seem to be quite a few dragons seeded into everywhere, but especially Temur and especially green-blue, all the way down to common as well.
Yeah, you're going to see each of these Temur uncommons, the blue-red one, the green-red one, they all have to do with dragons in some way. And I think they did, like you said, a pretty good job of seeding dragons in the set, not just at rare. This is, there are rare dragons and mythic dragons, but I believe my first scan, the count is, I think there's about 2 dragons in each of the Temur colors at uncommon, and then about 2 or 3 at common. So you're going to have dragons in your deck. This isn't just throwaway text.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I don't know how likely you are to be getting more than a card worth of value off of this throughout the course of a game, but that's not that much to, I don't think this is, the ceiling on this card is not, insanely high, though I guess it could be if it goes, unchecked throughout the course of a 15-turn game. But more likely than not, a 2-mana 1/4, if you are trying to, just stabilize and, ramp out your dragons or whatever, I think this is, a nice little C+.
Yeah, I would say so, too. It's going to be, the value of this card is very much how many dragons do you have in your
it's
deck.
going to vary wildly, for sure.
Yeah, and what's nice, remember Gretchen from the 04.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. A 1/4, I think, is quite a bit better for a defensive creature because it means that your opponent can't just attack with impunity with a bunch of X1s, right? With Gretchen, it's okay, well, sure, yeah, I can still attack.
And I think important to note that Pack Tactics is back from AFR, Hobgoblin Captain is back from AFR, and, the fact that you can prevent Hobgoblin Captain from swinging in when you've got Corlessa Scale Singer, because it not only will be able to hit the 1 toughness, but outclass the 3 power. That's a pretty important stat there.
Totally.
So C+ there on Corlessa.
All right, next up, we've got Crodel of Baldur's Gate, another reprint. I guess makes sense. This is Baldur's Gate. So this is the black blue 1/3. When Crodel deals combat damage to a player, that player loses 1 life and mills a card. Then you gain a life and scry 1. And it also says, whenever you attack, you may pay 2. If you do, a target creature can't be blocked this turn. And that's not for Crodel. You can do that with any attacking creature.
So I was a big fan of Crodel in the last set in AFR, even though that deck was not, like, I liked the, whatever, sneak in your creatures, very, very, very sneaky rogues deck, even though it wasn't that good. And I think part of what made it good was sneaking in stuff that when it hit, let you venture.
Mm-hmm.
Without venturing, this gets a little bit worse in my mind, because there isn't that sort of like, perpetual value that you're getting by jumping through these hoops. I do think this is like just a good card on its own, but it's gonna have to reevaluate. When I'm seeing the reprint of the Signpost Uncommon, it's causing me to reevaluate a little bit about like, okay, well, not all the pieces that were there last time are there again, so what is this gonna look like? And I just don't know, but I think this is a solid card.
Yeah, I think all of your sentiments I definitely echo. Like, it's a solid card. The kind of deal you damage, I get an effect, like I draw a card stuff. Some of that is here from last time, some of it isn't. I think it's just like less supported this time, to be honest. So I think just, again, look at this card as, is this a good card? It's probably not a reason to go into black blue, but maybe, black is the color you started in, and blue, you're like, oh, it's kind of open. And you pick up Crodel, and you're like, yeah, okay, this is a fine card. And in that spot, I think Crodel's about a C+.
I agree completely. C+ sounds good. Next up, we have Lozan, Dragon's Legacy. 3 blue-red for a 4/2 legendary creature dragon shaman with flying. So 5 mana, 4/2 flyer. Whenever you cast an adventure, love that adventures are back. Whenever you cast an adventure or dragon spell, Lozan, Dragon's Legacy deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to any target, lol, that isn't a commander.
A very important line of text there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. This is the other, part of the Temur Dragon cycle. What do you think about that?
I mean, the upside is there. It has real, I read this card, I look at this card, and I have that feeling of, I cast it, and then I'm just like holding my breath on my opponent's turn. Just like, do I get to untap? Then this will be good.
Yeah, if you have dragons. Sorry, that's another.
Well, yeah. So sure, you have to jump through some hoops. But also, I assume that like a 4-power flyer, if I get to untap with it, might even have a good attack, which is nice. There's not a ton of removal in this set, at least from my cursory look. So I don't know how, targeted this will be. I think you may be able to untap with it a fair amount. And again, it's big, it's fragile. You have deck building restrictions, so it's hard to get so excited about this.
Yeah, I think I am mostly unexcited about it.
Yeah,
I'm not
hate fun.
No, I hate things that you have to pray to untap with that are low.
Yeah, that's fair. That's probably a bad, like the fact that I know that.
Yeah, I can hear, I heard the hesitation in your voice. I'm like, well, if this is,
what if like, yeah, that's probably not a good card. C-, I guess.
I think so too. Yeah, C- for Lozan.
Okay, cool.
All right, next up we've got Uzi the Exquisite Blades. This is 4 mana, 2 blue-white for a 2/3. And it says, when Oji enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life and you scry 2. It also says, whenever you cast your second spell each turn, exile up to 1 target creature you control and return to the battlefield under its owner's control. So it's a little bit of blinky action. That's what blue-white's doing this time around. It's, we've got a bunch of stuff that, creatures that blink things, spells that blink things, you reuse enter the battlefield effects.
Yo, this card is sweet. 4 mana, 2/3, gain 2, scry 2. That's going to very often feel like draw a card because, by this point, let's assume that lands are dead for you. You don't need any more lands. And then you always have the ability to blink this, right? Exile up to 1 target creature. It doesn't say other. So you always will have an ETB effect to rebuy, gain that little bit of life, get that scry 2. The scry 2 also will ensure that you're digging towards more spells, right? You're always going to be able to scry away lands to get yourself to the ability to double spell. I like this card quite a bit.
Yeah, it's very much, I think a lot of the cards we've seen so far are very much, well, if you've got the deck for it, you've got a bunch of, there's, Priest of Ancient Lore is reprinted in the set, the 2/1 that when it enters the battlefield, you gain a life, draw a card. That's a really good thing to blink, So, it's going to be, like you say, it's not that bad to just blink OG if that's the only thing you have. But, if you do have maybe some uncommons or some rares that are really good to blink, this thing has a really high ceiling. So, it's tough. I think I'm going to start, pretty high on it. Not extremely high, but it can be very good in the right spot. So I'm going to give it a B-, but could be better, could be worse.
That's exactly what I was thinking. And, these it's hard to give these multicolored cards super low grades, though we actually have given 2 C minuses out already. But when we're at that point of like, oh, it's a C plus, a B minus, a B, we're really just talking about like, do I see this in a pack early in the draft and go, ooh, I'd like to be blue white, or do I see this in a pack or later in the pack in a draft and go, oh, I've already got some blue cards, let me take this and speculate on blue white, or I've already taken a couple blue cards and a couple white cards, sweet, I get this pick 6. I think this is much more the former. This is much more a card that I see and go, ooh, this seems like a reason to do a thing, let me see if that thing is viable.
Yeah, and you can totally imagine a deck where like, oh man, like I can make this card awesome, right? So I think that's a big point in its favor.
Next up, we got Thracus the Butcher. This is 3 red green for a 3/4 legendary creature dragon peasant. It has trample, and it says whenever Thracus the Butcher attacks, double the power of each dragon you control until end of turn.
Yeah, so it attacks as a 6/4 trample on its own, and then maybe some of your 4-power
own crawworm or whatever.
Yeah, build your own trampling crawworm. Yeah, and then the dragons are usually flying, so evasion plus doubling power is often a pretty good combo. One of the things I want to mention now that we've gotten to the last of this dragon teamer cycle is that this set has a lot of fixing. So like the most fixing I've seen in any set in the past.
Like two in green, and then we've also got Prophetic Prism and what's the other?
Pilgrims Eye.
Pilgrims Eye. Yeah. Thank you.
There's quite a bit. So I think even probably rivaling Streets of New Capenna, honestly.
Sure.
So we were talking about dragon density. How many is there in each common or uncommon and common for each color? I can see a deck where you're almost straight teamer, or at least 2 of the colors in a heavy splash, and you're just splashing for some of the better dragons. So if you're worried about how many dragons do I get in my deck, I don't think it's going to be that big of a problem if you have the reasons to get the dragons.
I really have a big problem with expensive things that don't play defense well.
Yeah, me too.
Like Mayhem Patrol is a lot less egregious to me because I'm like, yeah, that's not a good blocker, but whatever. But like when my 5 mana card can't stabilize me, or can't even attempt to stabilize me, I'm not a happy camper.
Yeah, I think this is like trying to play in the dragony rampy space, but also a green beatdown space, which maybe there's some crossover there, but not the most sleek overlap, I would say. So I think this card is just fine. I would probably give it, like, if this is the only dragon in your deck, it's like a C- or a D+, right? Yeah, this card. If it comes down and immediately buffs something, you're looking at like a better card there, but still not.
But
amazing.
It doesn't immediately buff something. It has to attack.
Oh, whenever this attacks. Oh, yeah, that's true.
I think this is not. I think this is like C- just straight up. I
agree with that. Especially if if you are a bunch of colors, you're kind of like don't care that much about a bunch of damage at once. You care more about late game.
That's the thing, right? Like I feel like the card advantage-y dragon things that we saw in green blue and blue red, or I mean not card. Well, I mean yeah, it is card advantage to be able to cast a thing and then kill a thing, right? As the blue red one does. This feels solidly in third place of those, I would say.
I think so too.
All right,
so. D+, C-?
Yeah, I said C-, but I can see cool. D+ too.
Next up, we've got Trilasara, Moondancer, another reprint. This is the green-white uncommon. It's a 2/2 for 2. And it says whenever you gain life, you put a +1/+1 counter on Trilasara and you scry 1.
Yeah, I mean, this card's pretty good. I mean, I don't, like, this was... Green-white life gain seemed like a bigger deal in AFR than it did just... in my overview of these cards as I was putting them together. Not getting Cleric class I think is a big hit to the green white archetypes. We'll have to see what fills it out. I don't know, this is fine. Probably more of a reward or like a speculation-y thing. If you start off with like a Priest of Ancient Lore and whatever, and then you see this, you go, oh, okay, maybe I'll do green white.
It's so just foresight into this. I did do a scan for green white and see what's ported over, what's new. There's most of the stuff is ported over. Like we've got the unicorn that gets a counter on it. We've got the roper, the 4/5 that untaps when you gain life. We lost cleric class, unfortunately, which was a big thing for this life gain deck. But a lot of the enablers are still there. So I was fine with this deck last time around. It was an okay deck.
It was like a green white beatdown deck that then sometimes like popped off with Trilasara or cleric class, right?
Yeah. And this is a good card, right? Yeah. This is a pretty solid card in that deck. So if you are in that deck, maybe you have 2 or 3 of these, it's totally going to be fine. Give me a C+ or something like that. But I don't think you're going to want to first pick this and be like, okay, let's take all the life gain, because there's just not that much to go around.
Right. So I'd say C+.
Yep, I agree.
Sweet. All right, let's move on to the artifacts. First up, we've got Spike Pit Trap. Single mana for an artifact with flash. It has 5 tap, sacrifice Spiked Pit Trap, choose target creature, then roll a d20. 1 to 9, you deal 5 to that creature. 10 to 20, deal 5 damage to that creature and make a treasure token.
Yeah, so another reprint. We saw this one last time. It was marginally playable if you needed a removal spell.
Yeah.
Like, that's about it. Nothing exciting. It's like your D grade removal spell.
Yeah, it's a D+. Like, you'll begrudgingly play it if you have to.
Yeah, and a lot of these cards that are reprinted, we're going to skip through, you know, assuming most people listening kind of know what's up. And, well, we know what's up, which is actually more important.
Right, we won't be arguing or speculating as much as we like to about cards that we've had the chance to play with for 2 months, you know?
And, you know, at the same time, though, when there's an exception, it's like, oh, this is a little bit different this time. You know, it's good to note that. But for most of these, it's nice that we can just go like, yep, we've seen this. I don't think much has changed here.
Agree.
All right, next up, we've got Cloak of the Bat, which is a 2-mana equipment. The equipped creature has flying and haste, and it's got equipped 2.
Pretty expensive, you know, for just flying. If we think about Cobbled Wings or that variant, often this is an equip 1. Haste is nice. I don't think haste makes this feel like it's worth the extra equip cost. You know, certainly if you get, it's tough to know, given how aggressive Adventures in the Forgotten Realm was. I assume as whatever, our core set variant for the year, this will likely be a fairly, you know, straightforward, attacking, combat, aggressive kind of set. I don't anticipate the dust settling, and then Cloak of the Bat is there on your top decking, and the Cloak of the Bat player feels like they've got a real advantage because everything they rip off the top is an evasive, hasty threat. Like, sure, that's the best case scenario for this card, but that's not going to come up very often, and a lot of the times this is going to feel too clunky, I think. I'm just going to go, like, D on this.
Yeah, this class of card, just the equipment that gives flying and a little bit of a bonus of some sort, is never generally, I mean, almost never good. And I just think, in general, a good card evaluation heuristic is just kind of like equipment generally, common equipment especially, just isn't great unless there's, you know, unless noted otherwise, unless we go, no, this is an equipment you want to care about. I just think equipment in the last little while hasn't, you know, been very good. And it's just a function of it's hard to design equipment without being overbearing. Like, this is
right. It's either busted or not because it's a colorless card. So it's like, you have to balance it out. I agree.
Yeah. So I'm just going to give this like a D-.
Okay, cool.
All right. Next up, we got a really cool one. This is a fan favorite, Prophetic Prism. 2 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and you can filter your mana. 1 tap, add a mana of any color.
This card is sweet. I mean, who knows how much will be splashing around. There are some 3 color rares that seem pretty sweet. There's a lot of single pipped multicolor rares that, you know, you may want to be dipping your toe into if you're touching one of the colors. Maybe there's just going to be full on 3, 4, 5 color soup decks. I don't really know. I'm going to be a little, I'm going to try and grade with my my head and not my heart here and just give this like a, I don't know, C- for now, but I could see it being sweet.
So you know, I think you'll be happy to hear, at least, you know, if you care at all about my initial impressions of the set. I actually think,
Alex, I actually don't care at all about.
All right, let's go to the next card. Lantern of Reveal. No. So I actually think this set is really good for splashing. I think that the aggressive creatures aren't that good for the most part, and there are not that many of them. I think the set is very much set up for you to cast your big expensive spells, your big dragons, your 3 color cards. There's, you know, there was, like I said, that glut of fixing and that glut of ramp. I think that's one of the design intentions of the set, is to have players be able to do that. And I think Prophetic Prism is going to be an important card in a lot of decks.
That was, so one of the things I noticed, just because I was putting all of the cards in order for the slideshow and in the spreadsheet, and we do them in order of mana value, is just, it's not a lot of cheap cards.
Yep.
And there's not a lot of removal. And certainly playing a lot of the Chromatic Cube currently, that's a lot of what that feels like. You're like, okay, well, either I have my ramp on turn 2, or I got my fixing, I'm playing my tap lands, whatever, I'm setting up my mana, and then I'm casting my big dumb things. Or I'm some sort of, you know, streamlined lower curve deck that's trying to combat those strategies. And I wonder if the Chromatic Cube coming out right before this set was all big brain from WotC to like prime us for what the set looks like. So great. Well, I'll defer to you for now for this grade. What do you think about Prophetic Prism?
I want to give it a C+. Like, not to get people's hopes up, but I think that this set is kind of more what people want in a limited set. That's my initial impression.
Look, if known hater of fun, Alex Nikolic is going to give Prophetic Prism a C+. I cannot go lower than a C+.
All right.
I'm not allowed.
What's up next?
Next up is Lantern of Revealing. It's 3 mana for an artifact. It taps to add 1 mana of any color, and it has 4 tap. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't put the card onto the battlefield, you may put it on the bottom of your library. So this is, I mean, I bet you know the name. I don't. Vivian something from, or Nissa's something. I don't remember. It was the 2/3 from War of the Spark that had this ability, but it was for creatures. It was 4 mana. Look at the top card. If it's a creature, you put it in your hand. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. It's yeah. I don't know the name actually. Funny enough.
So that's pretty sweet. I mean, having a mana rock. This is your problem with like mana rampers, right? Is that they do stuff early and then are done. Vivians Grizzly. Thank you, chat. They do stuff early and then in the late game they don't do anything. Well, this sort of changes that for you, right? You have a place to put your mana to continue to, not that you're dying to draw lands, but certainly digs you through your land pockets to get you to action.
Yeah, this is very much for the decks that want this kind of effect, a big rampy deck, maybe your splish splashy. It's a fine stand-in. You know, we saw Neon Dynasty actually had the most recent example of a Manolith variant that had some ability on it. The what was that one called? The one that looted with an artifact. Network Terminal. That's the one.
Yeah. I was like,
yeah.
What card? Oh yeah, that card is awesome.
Yeah, and so this is, I think a little bit worse than that in general, but like it's not. It might even be better, to be honest. So just in that same ballpark of power level for the decks that might want this kind of effect.
Yeah. This one I will say C- on.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be like a staple bread and butter kind of card or anything, but later in the pack when you're like, yeah, I kind of need some fixing, kind of need some ramp, this is a fine card that does that.
Yeah.
All right. Oh man. Next up, Pilgrims Eye, 3 mana for a 1/1 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you search your library for a basic land and you put it in your hand.
Do you want to just call it now? Best pack one, pick one common?
I love this card so much, Ethan. This card, and I know you do too.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Ooh, do I want to call it?
I mean, is it going to be Skittering Surveyor? Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Who knows?
We'll have to see.
One of the cool things about this is, there's the specialized cards, which I'm sure if anybody has seen anything about this set, they'll have seen these 5-sided cards, right? Basically, that they're
6-sided.
6-sided cards. Yeah, they're something on the front side, and then based on the cards in your deck, they transform into gold card, red, blue, gold card, or red, green, gold card if you have a red card or a green card or a blue card or an island. The lands count too. So what Pilgrim's Eye can help you do, if you really want to, is you can discard this to your specialized card. And let's say you're playing blue-green. Well, you want access to the blue-black version of your specialized card. Pilgrim's Eye can help you do that. Along with this just being a good card in general.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to start B-.
Yeah, I think so too. I could even go as high as B. I think this is a fantastic card.
I agree.
I'm going to start B, yeah.
You're going to start B? Sweet.
Yeah.
Our last common here is Iron Golem, 4 mana for a 5/3 with Vigilance, and it attacks or blocks each combat if able. No thank you.
Got a downshift.
Hard pass. Right. They're like, this card was terrible when it was uncommon. What about if it was common?
Yeah. Do you remember, like, not that this card saw a lot of play, but do you remember how you like felt on when your opponent played this card?
I felt like it's gonna die immediately.
Yeah.
Either I will attack into it with something big and kill it, or force you to attack, and then just wait a combat and you have to attack me. Like, this card is big no. I am very reluctant to give cards with power and toughness an F, but I am never putting this in my deck.
Yeah, I don't think it's I think it's more the D+ category or whatever. We're gonna split hairs, but it's not a card you ever want to or need to play. It's just totally throwaway-ish. So yeah, I'm gonna give it the D.
Great.
All right, uncommons here. So we've got Bag of Holding, making a return once again. Single mana for an artifact uncommon. Whenever you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard. 2, tap, draw a card, then discard a card. 4, tap, sacrifice the bag, return all cards exiled with the bag to their owner's hands. So we do have some new context for this card. That specialized mechanic I was talking about is a mechanic that makes you discard a card as a cost. So a little bit of something there. And if my little initial read on the set is correct, and at least close to correct, the set might be a little bit slower for this kind of effect to be a little bit better, to shine a little more than it did in AFR.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. I mean, cautiously optimistic. This is a glacially slow card.
Yes, for sure.
So I don't know. And not a lot of, like, what's it called? The like the adventure blow up an artifact. Find a cursed idol is not in this set, obviously, because there's no venturing. There didn't seem to be a ton of like incidental blow up an artifact stuff. There's like, you find some prisoners. We'll get to that. I don't know. I've been burned. I was excited about this card in the past, and it's just not that good. And I don't know. We've already seen cards that affect the board that also provide you value. I'm still gonna be cautious about Bag of Holding.
Yeah, you don't need to go that deep for your value, is what you're thinking.
I just feel like raw card advantage is kind of a thing of the past when like all things are 2-for-1s and 3-for-1s themselves, right?
Yeah.
Do I really need a card that doesn't affect the board that requires mana for me to like? I don't need my divinations anymore when my creatures are divinations, you know?
Yeah, I was talking about saying the merits of it, but I'm also not that high on it. So yeah, I don't know. What do you want to give it a D+ then?
I'm gonna start D, I think.
All right. Yeah, I think it's pretty safe.
Okay. Next up is Bronze Walrus. 3 mana for a 2/2 and it ETBs Scry 2, and it taps to add 1 mana of any color. Wow, another 3 mana all color fixer. This one, a little better because of the Scry 2, and it's actually a body, but then there's the downside of you can't tap. Like, I'm comparing it to the 3 mana rock that's at common. You can't tap this the turn it enters the battlefield like you can with that one, right? On turn 5, you can't cast this and a 3-drop. And
have you considered that it's Magic's first Walrus?
Oh, that is not something that I considered. No, what does that do for me?
Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Oh, okay. Moving on. Yeah, I think I'll probably just give this a similar C- to the Lantern.
I'm a little bit higher on. I think the Scry 2 pushes this over the edge a little bit. Like, I think this is better than the Lantern. I think being a creature.
A C?
Yeah, I think C. Yeah,
right.
The fact that it can attack and block if you needed to, and it
Sure.
it scries too. Yeah, I think this is fine.
All right, it's probably more upside than downside. That's fair.
Next up, we've got Navigation Orb. 3 mana for an artifact at uncommon. It's 2 tap. Sack the orb. Search your library for up to 2 basic lands and/or gates. Gates are in this set. Reveal those cards. Put one of them onto the battlefield tapped, and one in your hand.
I didn't. I was all ready to poo-poo this, and then to put one onto the battlefield tapped. So I was giving you a little cultivate action there. It's still a lot of mana for a cultivate. That's a 5 mana cultivate right there in installments.
Yeah, I think 5 mana cultivate's not really where you want to be, right? I think this just, it's before you actually get anything, it's turn 4. You have to take some part of turn 4 or later turn actually doing this. So I think this one I'm pretty
even if it's a slow format, it's never going to be this slow.
Right. So it's actually good point you make there. It's interesting to make the distinction between slow as in, well, everything's glacial. Or sorry, maybe the better way to look at it is like it's fast as in my opponents are attacking me with 2 drops, and fast where it's like the Chromatic Cube where it's a resource race where I'm ramping quickly and I want to get to 5 and I'm casting my haymakers, right? There's something different there. And this card is not good in either of those things, right? It's not good if people are attacking with 3s, and it's not good if you need to ramp on 2 and 3 and 4 to get to your expensive stuff, right? Yeah. So I think this just ain't it. It just ain't it.
This ain't it. I think that's great. What letter grade is ain't it for you?
I would probably give this an F, honestly.
You know what? I love it. I'm going F with you as well. Yeah. But I want to, with the caveat of, unlike the Iron Golem, there's like almost certainly a deck I'm gonna put that in. Like I'm gonna train wreck some draft and be like, well, I just need a little bit of fixing, and I'm gonna take that. All right, next up.
It's an F in the sense that you hope to not put it in your deck, but it could make your deck if you really need
to. Correct.
Yeah.
Next up we have Charlin Dragon at 6 mana for a 4/4 dragon with flying.
It's a 6 mana 4/4 flyer is not an exciting stat line. It's a pretty
so this is for like the Teamer Dragons drafter who's not getting the dragon. It's like
it's a bad place.
That's
to
a
be
bad spot to be in for sure. I don't love that for you. Yeah, this seems like a D+, C-.
I'm just imagining your opponent's sends you a screenshot, or your friend sends you a screenshot of their deck, and you're like, look how many dragons I picked up for my dragon deck.
Hashtag 4 doing it.
Yeah. This is a D as well, I think.
Yeah. All right. But the next one is not.
Yeah, Meteor Golem, 7 mana, 3/3. When entered the battlefield, destroy a non-land permanent an opponent controls.
Ooh, and there's like a little blink theme.
Yeah, the blink theme. Ooh.
Come on. I mean, this is just a good if we're thinking that ramp is part of it, which I think it is. I mean, we haven't seen a ton of it. I mean, because Pilgrims Eye doesn't actually ramp you, but the green cards do. Then getting to 7 mana is, 7 mana is not trivial, but there will be abilities to get there, maybe a turn early even. This is just good, I think.
Yeah, I've loved Meteor Golem anytime it's been in a limited format, and
Yeah.
I think we're pretty well set up to make this card good. There's things you can get stuff, cards that get stuff back from the graveyard. Like we said, Blink. There's a decent amount of ramp. We will get you it in green. So yeah, I want to start reasonably high on this one.
Like a B?
Yeah, maybe not that high, but I think a B minus or a C plus somewhere in there I think is pretty good.
Yeah, I think like it's probably like C plus territory-ish because it's 7. But I think like pack one, pick one style, if with the caveat of that it's this quote unquote slow format that like a 7-drop feels castable, that I like outside of just being in green. If this feels like a true colorless card, I think this is, in pack one, pick one, going to be like B minus B status.
Yeah, you're certainly, if you do have a good aggressive deck, it's not the kind of card you want for your deck.
No,
but
of course not.
In even like a mid-range deck, I think this is a pretty good card.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, that's going to bring us to the lands. We have this cycle of gates. Are they all the same? Yeah, right?
Yep.
Okay, so
all the same.
they're all the same. Gate to the Citadel is the white version. It enters the battlefield tapped. It has 3 and a white. Tap, seek a non-land card. Activate only once, full stop. And it taps for white. Oh, and its land type is Plains Gate. So it's a tapped white source that then has the ability for you to seek a non-land card. Now, seek is just random, right? Like it just pulls a random card out of your deck into your hand.
And it doesn't shuffle, if that matters at all for your deck. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is very similar to the sack lands we saw, or not the sack lands, the duels that could sacrifice to draw a card from Corlessa, from Streets, and you can kind of.
Except
and those are fine.
You don't lose them, right? Like
we don't lose them. That's a big upside. This isn't fixed, but that's okay because you keep your land.
And you know that you're not drawing a land.
Yes,
so it's better than draw a card. So these are just like they don't fix, but they're just straight up better than those in the sense of you don't have to sacrifice them. It's the same activated ability, and you know you're not drawing a land when you activate this.
Yeah, the point you're ever going to activate this, you don't want to draw a land, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Yeah. I like them. What do you want to give them?
Seems like pure upside. Like
I think so.
And can we just talk for a second about how like anti-tap land limited players are for some reason? Like,
go off.
Just the amount of pushback. We just had Theros Beyond Death. Now we have Chromatic Cube. And Theros Beyond Death is a better spot to give this example with the temples and people being like, what are we splashing? And I'm like, I'm playing a Scry Swamp in my black-blue deck. Like,
right.
This is just a good card. A tap land is not going to punish you. It will punish you some amount of the time, but that amount of the time is so far outclassed by how good a free scry is attached to a land.
Yeah, I think while there is a limit to the number of tap lands before it does hurt you,
you're not going to get them here.
No, yeah, and I definitely agree with your point with your energy here that most of the time I think just judging by my Twitch chat, people are like, "Ooh, that's like 2 tap lands?
2 tap lands.
Hurt you?
Like
2?"
I think the only time, basically, when I think about tap lands, I think about how many 1-drops do I need to cast on turn 1, right? Like. If I have like 4, if I'm an aggro deck and my 4 1-drops and my whole deck's plan is to go 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, yeah, I'm going to be pretty picky about how many, if any, tap lands I'm going to play in those decks. But that is it's seldom that your limited decks look like that.
Yeah. So I think, what did we say for this? Did you want to
we haven't given it a grade. I was too busy yelling about tap lands. I would give this a C+.
Yeah, I think C+ is pretty good too. I think you're going to take this, like, obviously it's not going to be a card where you, I mean, you might speculate on it. I was going to say maybe you take it like once you know you're in the color, but it's just a decent pull into the color too.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I have notoriously overgraded lands in the past, so I'm trying to temper that a little bit. Like, I think we're at the point where the delta between like having a mild effect from a land like this, which I like, draw a card is not a mild effect, but it is like incremental value from a land, is outclassed by the best commons and above in a limited set.
For sure, yeah.
So I don't think I can grade these higher than a C+ is my guess.
Yep, I'm in for that.
Okay, cool. So we'll run through these gates here. That's all 5 of those, and that's going to bring us on over to white. So our first white common is Patriarchs Humiliation. Single white for an instant. Target creature perpetually loses all abilities. Then Patriarchs Humiliation deals damage to it equal to the number of creatures you control. This is interesting. So the last time we saw an effect like this was in Eldraine, right? And it was a single white deal damage to a creature equal to... did it have to be attacking or blocking? I think not. I think it was just chilling on the battlefield, getting dealt damage.
Outflank, right?
Outflank, thank you. Yeah,
I think that had to be attacking.
I think it had to be attacking. Okay. So this doesn't even have to be attacking, right?
Yeah. No, just straight up. Depends on how many creatures you have.
I kind of like this. Like, I was impressed by I thought Outflank overperformed my expectations, and the fact that this is... there's no restrictions there. Plus, the lose all abilities thing might be... even if you can't kill the thing, maybe, like, removing Death Touch from the thing will kill it in combat or whatever, like...
Well, I think the most common place it's going to come up is your creature has been buffed perpetually, and you get rid of that. Like, you have 3 creatures, they perpetually buff their 3/3 into a 4/4. You get to kill that, too. We should also say, perpetually... for those who don't know, just means you kind of change the, like, creature can be, your opponent gives it perpetually +1/+1. That just means it gets +1/+1. That card, you kind of print it on the card forever. Even if it were to go to the grave, back to your hand. It's almost like a +1/+1 counter that sticks around, and you can perpetually change a card in any number of ways. This will take all those things off back to whatever the original card said. So it resets it, kind of.
I think important to note for this kind of card that the more copies you have, the worse they get. So, like, this is the kind of card where, like, the first copy might be a C+. And then the next copy is, like, they have diminishing returns because it has a setup cost. Unlike, a removal spell like Dragon's Fire, they don't get worse because, like, they don't need anything else. It's just like, is this going to be good or bad? This has some restrictions to it or some setup to it. But I think I might start the first copy at a C.
Yeah, I think so, too. Yeah, I think
it being better, but I'll start with C.
The fact that you don't have to have the creature attacking or blocking, I think is pretty big.
Well, and that it does something else too. That it's not dead otherwise as well.
Yeah, this gets better the more cheap creatures you have, obviously, too, right? So if you have your removal spell turned on ASAP on turn 3 or 4, that's also really nice.
And not only is blue-white doing the blinking thing, but blue-white is trying to double spell as well, right? Because that's how you trigger the signpost uncommon. So, yeah, there you go.
All right, sweet. Next up, we've got Steadfast Unicorn. Single white mana for a 1/2. Has the activated ability 3 and a white. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain vigilance until end of turn.
I'm just kind of offended that this is a unicorn that doesn't have flying.
do all unicorns have flying?
I guess Pegasus have flying.
Pegasus, yeah, that would be a Pegasus that flies.
Okay. This says activate only once each turn.
Yeah.
This seems like filler to me. This is like D+ territory.
Yeah, I could see this in a deck where you've got a lot of, go wide tokeny stuff, but there's not a ton of that in this set, like I said. And so it's just like, yeah, really kind of fine 1-drop. Maybe you have some augmentation, but I don't. This is not a 1-drop.
Sorry. I misread it. And activate only during your turn, not once. Yes. Sorry, my mistake.
Yeah, so you can't do it on blocks. Yeah, I don't think this is particularly good. I would probably give this a D.
Yeah, I'm in for D as well. Next up, we have You're Ambushed on the Road. Single white. For an instant, choose one, make a retreat to return target creature you control to its owner's hand, or stand and fight. Target creature gets +1/+3 until end of turn.
Yeah, I remember liking a copy of this the last time it was around. Just, it's pretty versatile. Pick up a creature in response to removal spell. The whole thing was people started main decking these against the active treason steal and sack thing, right? Because it's just like, whoops, you go to target my active treason thing, I get to pick it up. So it's like, yeah, it's not bad. The trick is kind of versatile too. So not a bad trick at all. It's 1 mana tricks are always a lot better than more expensive tricks. So I would probably give this somewhere like, C- D+ range.
Yeah, D+ seems fine. Like, not embarrassing, but you'll never end a draft and be like, if only I had one copy of You're Ambushed on the Road.
Yeah, exactly. Also kind of plays nice with the white-black theme of when something leaves, if you care about that at all.
Right. Well, and also double spelling or whatever, rebuying ETBs. Like, I could see it having, like, it's probably going to do a lot of small things well.
Next up, we got Mace of Disruption. 1 and a white for an equipment. It says, equipped creature gets +0/+2 and has protection from demons and from devils. When the equipped creature attacks, it perpetually gets +1/+0 if it has the same name as another creature you control or a creature in your graveyard. Equip 1.
It perpetually gets +1/+0 if it has the same name as another creature you control. So that's the whatever double team.
Double team, yeah.
Okay, great. And so then you can like move it around, right? Because it doesn't need to be wearing this to have the +1/+0.
Right. It kind of leaves around a bonus if you fulfill the requirement of having another card with the same name.
I think I'm not into this.
No, I think it's I won't say hoops to jump through, but a bit finicky.
It's
right?
a bit finicky. I think it's a bit more than finicky, and the thing you get at the end of all that isn't that great.
Yeah. Like, why would I want to spend mana doing this when I can just play my double team creature and have a trick or something, you know? So,
Right, yeah.
And then the just regular bonus of, 2 mana equipment, equip 1, give +0/+2 is not good at all. So, yeah, I think this is another D.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, cool. Next up is Flaming Fist Dusk Guard, 1 and a white for a 3/1 Dwarf Soldier. When it enters the battlefield, you get a boon with when you cast your next creature spell, it perpetually gets +1/+0.
Yeah, so boons, for those who don't know, they are, we mentioned a little bit before, but I should go over it. It's basically like a little mini emblem, kind of like a reminder trigger. So the boon for this one is, all right, you get a +1/+0 on your next creature. On Arena, you'll just display that on the side, just as a reminder. And then, when you cast your next creature, the boon gets applied to it.
Yeah, that seems pretty good. So it's like we've had cards that are like, it's perpetually gains. Like you cast it, and then a thing in your hand perpetually gains. So this is like not even that. It's just the next thing you cast, right?
One of the really cool things, I think, and this is one of the upsides of a digital set, is you get a lot of different interplay and a lot of different combinations of cards. Like you read this and you're just like, okay, generically my next thing gets bigger. But giving +1 to different types of creatures is really interesting. Like giving it to a flyer is a lot different than just giving it to another ground creature or giving it to a lifelinker, right? So this +1 is very modular, and it's very much going to depend on what you give it to. Like if I play a 2/1 flyer next turn, having a 3/1 flyer is a big bonus. So really
curving this into oh my god, into Pilgrims Eye.
Yeah, exactly.
Just build your own inspiring overseer.
Right, exactly. So yeah, I think this card is really interesting, really cool. Like the rate on it is just fine. I will say I'm a little bit tepid about cheap X1s because there's a Shambling Ghast is back, and there's a few
and there's
cards that punish
Pilgrim's Eye, right?
Sure, Pilgrim's Eye.
That's a 1 power thing that has already replaced itself is powerful. One, this gets embarrassed by the 1/4 blue-green uncommon.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's a fine card though. I'm gonna start it to C. I could see going a little bit lower on it, but it seems solid to me.
Yeah, I'm in for C on the Dust Guard as well.
All right, next up we got Soldiers of the Watch. It's a 2 mana 2/1 with double team. Pretty simple. So again, you attack with this, you get a copy into your hand, you get another 2/1, and then they're just 2/1s forever. They don't retain the double team.
I mean, obviously this is like good on 2 on the play.
Yeah.
But it can kind of quickly just look like a goblin piker, which is really embarrassing.
Yeah, I think this card is man. I was just talking about the X1 stuff, and
even if this trait, like, so let's say this has an attack. Let's say this even has an attack for free on the board.
Then it's okay. It's like just a mini Throng.
Yeah, it's a mini Throng. That's gonna happen so rarely, and even if this trades with something, you better believe that the copy you get is gonna be fairly irrelevant.
I think if your piker just came with a free piker, though, you're pretty happy. Unless you have to attack, but even if it just trades,
it doesn't. But right, because like sometimes you need to.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's fine. I don't think it's amazing, but I do think it's a fine card. Like I would just give this a C as well.
Okay, that's fair. Do you like this or the 3/1 better?
Unsure. I would guess this one though. I think just generating additional material is really good.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we got Valiant Farewell. This is a instant 1 and a white. Target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn. When that creature leaves the battlefield this turn, you get a boon with when you cast your next creature spell, it perpetually gets +2/+0, and you draw a card. So really interesting. Yeah, it's like one of those combat tricks that doesn't actually help you win the combat, but helps you trade up and gives you some sort of bonus afterwards. The drawing a card, it's kind of almost think of it like a blade brand in a way, right? Where it's like you're going to win the combat a lot of the time, you draw your card back, and this gives you a little bit of additional upside. Your next thing does get a buff.
Can we compare this to Fake Your Own Death in any way?
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's a little different because, it's Fake Your Own Death. A lot of value in that is retriggering ETBs and getting your same creature back, but it's in the same space.
Yeah. So this replaces the draw a card on this. I don't know. This feels good to me. Like the Blade Brand tech, it's better than Blade Brand in my mind because it does the thing Blade Brand does. You win the combat, you draw a card, and then the next creature you cast is bigger.
Yep. I think it's pretty good. Like it's a fine trick. Yeah. It's definitely going to, again, just like I was talking about with the last boon card. Really depends on the creatures in your deck. On both sides, right? +2 means it's gonna play well with lifelink and stuff like that on when you cast it, and the next thing you cast it on, if you have a flyer, giving the boon to that is pretty nice. So gonna vary a little bit given your deck, but I think it's a solid card.
Yeah. So first copy is what, a C?
Yeah, I think it's still going to be like a C- or a C. It's one of those weird cards that has a lot of text and takes a little bit to parse. So I imagine you're going to get a lot of these early, especially early in the format. But yeah, I think your white decks are going to be happy with the copy of this.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next up is Dawnbringer Cleric. 1 and a white for a 1/3. When it enters the battlefield, choose 1. Cure wounds. You gain 2 life. Dispel magic. Destroy target enchantment. Gentle repose. Exile target card from a graveyard.
Yep. We've seen this before. It's not amazing. You could play it if you had stuff that cares about gaining life, but overall, probably about a D.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And worth noting, by the way, chat's saying this about the last card, the Valiant Farewell. Draw a card there's such a high ceiling, or high floor on that. Like any of these things that say draw a card, any of these tricks, just make it pretty good. Anyways, next card here. We've got another reprint, Steadfast Paladin. 1 and a white for a 2/2, lifelink.
Good.
Yeah, good. We like these. We like the 2-mana 2/2 lifelinks.
I think that's a C+ for me.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially with boons in the set, right? That's nice. Like the McGee and stuff. 4/2. That's pretty sweet.
That's very true. Next up is you hear something on watch. 1 and a white for an instant. You choose 1. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn, or this spell deals 5 damage to target attacking creature. I remember really liking this card.
Me too. Yeah.
Just like because what ends up happening is this feels a little bit closer to, coming off of SNC, feels closer to knockout blow than it does to kill shot. Like, I think you look at this and you go, I can only kill an attacking thing. But oftentimes I would be like, so I have you hear something on watch. So either I can make this attack, they think they can block and trade and they can't, I pump, and then maybe even get some extra incidental damage. Or they don't block and then I get to get them on attacks by casting this on their attacker. And the fact that it's only 2 mana is quite nice as well.
Yeah, 2 mana versus 3. Like you said, we just played with Killshot, and that card is not very good, but being able to keep up 2 is way, way easier.
I mean, it's going to be deck dependent. Like, the more your deck is interested in being defensive, the more interested you are in this card. Totally. The more aggressive you are, the less interested you are in this card. Yep. But I'd probably start the first copy as a C again.
I think so too. I remember there was decks, some of my defensive white decks definitely wanted, 2-3 copies.
This was my 2-drop in those decks. Like,
yep, exactly.
Because you couldn't get the 2/2 lifelinkers, so because everyone's snapping those up. But like these would whip around the table, and I'm like, great, these are my 2-drops.
Yep, and this even kills pretty large things, right? It kills big flyers. So yeah, I'm kind of into this. I would give this a C. I could see this creeping into C+. All right, next up, another old friend, Celestial Unicorn. 2 and a white for a 3/2. Whenever you gain life, you put a counter on the unicorn.
I mean, I gotta wait to see what the as fan is here of the life gain stuff. But this wasn't. I mean, this could get out of control, but 3 mana 3/2s are notoriously not great. Especially 3 mana 3/2s where you're like, just wait for it. Obviously, the curve of play your lifelinker on 2, cast this on 3, attack with your lifelinker. Now this is a 4/3. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I think that it's often also like you had multiple wait for it's in there. It wasn't just a 1 wait for it, right? It's not just the first counter. You're like, okay, it's a 4/3. I can still, sometimes their 2-drops still traded to that. So it's like a lot of work for not that great of a payoff. And yeah, I don't think this life gain deck is that heavily planted that I really want this. So I think this is going to be a mildly playable card in decks that do gain a lot of life and just not a high pick at all. So I would give this a D.
Yeah, sure. I'm in for D. Next up, we got Flaming Fist Officer. 2 and a white for a 2/2 Gnome Soldier. Interesting. Whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Flaming Fist Officer. So this has Unruly Mob, or even I think there was a 3 mana 2/2 version of this. Some Populace in War of the Spark. Yeah. It cared about dying, not leaving, but same deal. Like in limited, it's almost always just going to be dying is your leaving. It's just hard. It's just hard to get excited about a 3 mana 2/2 that you have to have set up to grow. And it even has to it grows once and then it's at rate as a 3 mana 3/3. And then by the time it gets bigger, it just I don't know. I don't like these cards.
No, I think I am in total agreement here. And, I know somebody's probably going to point this out or is thinking about that. Yes, the flicker thing is why it cares about leaving as well, right? Because you can blink things in this set. Even still, this kind of card is just not what you want. You don't want to have to, like you said, hold your breath and go wait for it. Sometimes you're going to be like, oh, yeah, it's a little bit of a problem. On average, though, this ain't it.
Yeah, I think this is another D for me.
Yep, I think so, too.
Okay.
All right. Minimus Containment. So this is 2 and a white. For a aura, enchant non-land permanent. Enchanted permanent is a treasure artifact with tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color. It loses all other abilities. So, I was saying, Ethan, there's quite a bit of ramp in this set. This one counts. It does ramp your opponent to cast all their awesome things.
That's true, and fixes them as well.
Yeah.
I
was a big no on this card for me.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I hated this card.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
You were into it?
That's not my memory of this card is not disliking it, but
interesting.
I don't know, so we'll see. But I'll trust you. I think you've revisited AFR more recently than I have. Yeah, I don't remember hating this card at all.
I guess my recollection of it is you had to be very careful about when you were going to cast it. Like, you definitely didn't want to cast it on 3. Like, that's, one of the nice things about a cheap removal spell is you can cast it on a cheap creature that's attacking you. Not so much with this thing, because then they just ramp up to their 5-drop or double spell. So it's like an okay thing for the later game, if that's what your white deck is doing. But there's a lot of caveats with that myself.
Yeah, I'd say it's a little closer to Divine Gambit, perhaps, than in that respect. But and maybe I'm not interested in loading up on these or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I would just give this a C. It sounds like you're going to go way lower, but
yeah, I'm going to give this a D. It might be, the context might change here.
I think that's crazy. I
remember this card's being
you may need to be committed, my friend.
Sorry, say again?
Just committed, as
okay.
An insane person. All right, next up we have, it's a bit of a nerf here, Priest of Ancient Lore. 2 and a white for a 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life and draw a card. Much like the unicorns, it doesn't have flying.
Yeah, I mean, this is still a good card, though. It doesn't, there's a long way down from Inspiring Overseer and bad, so even though it does not have flying, that's okay. Yeah,
this is an Alchemy rebalanced version of Inspiring Overseer. This card's very good. This is probably a B.
Yeah, there's, we don't even have to talk about all the synergies this has with blinking and life gain or whatever.
Everybody knows. You all know.
Yeah, everybody knows. Everybody's thinking it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd give it a B as well.
Sweet.
All right, next one, we've got our first adventure. So this is Blessed Hippogriff. This is a 4 mana, 3 and a white, 2/3 flyer. It says when Blessed Hippogriff attacks target attacking creature without flying, gains flying until end of turn. And the adventure side of this, single white mana, instant, target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. So it's been a while since adventures have been in a standard set, about 3 years since Eldraine. So for those who haven't played with it, what adventures are there's an instant on one side, creature on the other half of the card. You can just cast the creature straight up if you'd like, or you get a little bit of value. You cast the instant side first, or sorcery, or whatever it is, and then it goes into the exile zone, and then you can then cast the creature from exile. So it's a little, sort of 2-for-1 in a lot of spots.
This is like just shy of what I want this to do, which is I just want my 4 mana things to be able to push damage. My 4 mana things that want to be aggressive, I want them to do something that shouldn't they come into play. So if this came into play and give something flying until end of turn, I'd kind of like that a little bit better. Like and this is the adventure tacked onto this is like pretty good. The fact that it's so cheap is nice. I imagine this won't be, it's not like all the time this is going to be in your hand, it's going to be good. And obviously, like, it's only going to have a few times where you'll be able to fire it off, right? Because by the time you can cast this as a creature, you're not holding on to this to make sure you have the adventure half, right? Like a lot of other adventures were like, oh, I'm definitely casting the adventure first and then doing the next thing. But that flexibility is nice. I don't know. It's all things that I'm like, I like this, but so I'd say like C minus.
I'm a little bit higher on this than it sounds like you are. I think the fact that, so like imagine on turn 4 you attack and you have the indestructible up and you can go 1 mana, win the combat, play a 3-drop, or if they don't block, you just go, okay, well, that's fine. You take a bunch of damage, and I play my 2/3. Maybe they were hoping to race, and they're like, okay, I'll take the damage. You drop this, and it's like, ugh, that makes it a lot harder to race at this point because they have that thing, the 2/3 flyer that jumps their other creatures. And I don't mind that 2/3 flyer that jumps other creatures. I don't think that's a card you would be super thrilled about playing on its own, but I do think it's still pretty decent. So I would give this card a C+. I think it's got a lot going on. And, to your point, don't feel like you have to get value off of the
Yeah.
instant side. Don't feel like, well, I gotta hold it until I get the value and then play it. Just play it if it's the best thing to do that turn.
Agreed. Next up is Icewind Stalwart, or Icewind Stalwart, I guess. 3 and a white for a 3/3 Tiefling warrior. And it says when it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target non-warrior creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control.
Yeah, a little Glimmer Point Stag, I think that card was called.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of that action. This is kind of a nice one. So obviously, we just talked about the Priest of Ancient Lore. That's a nice one to blank.
Oof.
But yeah, being able to unlock a creature from anything locking it down enchantment wise, or there's a lot of good ETB effects in this set. 4 mana 3/3.
Sir, I'm sorry, you can't unlock your treasure from Minimus Containment because it's not a creature, it's a treasure.
Oh, that's a good point.
So get wrecked.
You got me, Ethan.
Yeah, nice try.
Checkmate.
Nice try.
Checkmate. Well, other things. Charm Sleep has made a return, so there's more things to jump.
Limited All-Star Charm Sleep.
Yeah. But anyways, I think this card is solid. Like it's not going to be very much like we've been saying. You're gonna kind of have to ask, okay, what cards are on my deck? Does this work well? Do I have enough ETBs? But if you do, it's gonna be a solid card.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, 4 mana 3/3, not great, but I think this is fine. Probably deserves some sort of a synergy grade, but I'm just gonna go C on it, C minus. C.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah.
All right, next up, what do we got?
We got Devoted Paladins. This is 5 mana for a 4/4. It's got the ability when it enters the battlefield, your creatures get +1/+1 and vigilance until end of turn.
This is an incredibly difficult card to race. If your deck is set up at all to be aggressive, this is good top end. I gotta say, I'm not seeing it from white so far. I'm seeing the best twos being the 2/2 lifelinker, and honestly, you hear something on watch. Then I'm seeing Priest of Ancient Lore. Then I'm seeing maybe Blinking Priest of Ancient Lore. And then I'm not really seeing Devoted Paladin being supported in that way.
White seems to fall into that problem here that it often has of it being half aggressive,
half
controlling. Yeah. So,
but I think the non-aggressive half seems better to me.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
Just like it was in AFR
Yeah,
too. So,
right.
Yeah, I don't think this card is. I think I would give it a D. Like, there's a lot of sets where there is a lot of go wide stuff. White is very aggressive. This card would be good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's this set though. So I think just low grade on this one.
Yeah, for sure. Next up is Ranger Squadron. 4 white for a 3/4 flyer with double team. That's interesting. Like, again, I'm gonna knock this the same way I knocked the red green uncommon, as I don't like my expensive things to be bad blockers, but I do like being able to. I mean, what is this? This is Imperial Oath, baby. Like, you just 6 mana 3/4, then next turn I attack with my flyer and draw 6 mana 3/4.
Yeah, this one's a tough one for me to rate, because if the game is at that point where 3/4 is a reasonable thing, getting another one is very, very good.
Right.
But it is a 6 mana 3/4 at the same time, so I don't know. This one I think eludes me a little bit. My gut says I don't love it, but I could be wrong on this one.
Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, this is, if white is playing a more defensive game, I really don't hate this card. Like, as just a way to get a kind of finisher in your white decks at common. I mean, a 3/4 flyer, if you have like short up the ground, but you're like, how do I win? 2 3/4 flyers is a way to win, baby. Yeah,
I'm a little bit tepid on 4 toughness, 6 mana. Also, no ETB, 6 mana. But I can see this having spots. So I'm going to start this low. I think it's going to be like a D+ for me. But you could be right. I could definitely see this being like, this is the card you want to comment for your white decks.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, and you're never gonna have to prioritize it. You're never gonna have to. Maybe you don't even want more than one in a deck. I'm not sure, but I don't know.
When you're right, Ethan, we'll just start calling this Wingmate Rock. Right?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So you're going D, you said?
I think so. Yeah, D+.
I'll go C- on it.
All right. Next up, we've got Guardian Naga. So this is another adventure card. It's a 7 mana 5 white 5/6 vigilance, and as long as it's your turn, you prevent all damage that would be dealt to the Guardian Naga. The instant side of this is 2 and a white, exile target artifact or enchantment.
Whoa.
Yeah.
7 mana 5/6 vigilance that like can attack with impunity is cool. Having a main deck way to blow up an artifact or enchantment in best of 1 is cool, and maybe even in best of 3. Both of those together, in an overcosted sense, it's not great.
Yeah, I don't think I love this one. This is another, late game white card. It does
Right.
not exactly help white's aggressive plan very much. I think this is, from a design perspective, to me, this is what you're saying here, where it's like, yeah, you could main deck it. It wouldn't be the worst.
Hmm.
You could play this. It's not a dead card. If you ever get something with this and then have a giant thing, if the game slowed down a little bit, like say your opponent is playing one of those slower rampy decks and you get to banishing coils their artifact and then you have a giant thing looming in the exile zone,
Hmm.
like that is pretty good. So it's not that this card doesn't have some upsides in some games where it's going to be pretty good. I think on average though, it's not just going to be a card you put in your deck.
I agree. What do we think? D?
Yeah, I would probably go D on this. This is one like my senses are tingling a little bit that I could see this just being like, maybe the format is in that spot where it is a little bit slow. There isn't enough enchantments and artifacts running around that people do main deck that this gets up a little bit in there. But I'm gonna start pretty low.
Yeah. All right. Sweet. It's gonna move us on to the uncommons. First up is Monk of the Open Hand, single white for a 1/1, and it has Flurry of Blows. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Monk of the Open Hand.
Yeah, so this is playing in that blue-white double spell theme, which is very light. And also, we've seen this card in the last AFR, last D&D set as well. And it was like, you could play it. It wasn't that exciting, though.
I don't really love having to work for a 2/2,
Oh, you don't?
I don't. It's not my favorite thing, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever cast this card.
White's got a lot of those, eh? A
Yeah.
lot of the unicorn, this thing, the 3-mana 2/2 that grows. When
Is there just going to be
battlefield.
like there was mono red in Neon Dynasty? Is there just like mono white 1-drops?
It's mono white cares about
Double spell?
being small and then growing eventually, I guess. Like,
right.
I don't know.
That's the thing. I'm just also like, how do you, at least like mono red had synthesizer, I'm like, how do you refill, like once you've dumped your 4 1-drops into play, what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm kind of out on this. I think this is just another D.
Yeah, I'm gonna go F on the Monk.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
All right. Poho.
Sorry?
Poho. That's what this.
Oh yes.
Portable hole. Poho.
Yeah. I thought you were going, whoa, wait a second.
Whoa, it's Poho.
Yeah. So single white mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you exile a target non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value 2 or less until the hole leaves the battlefield.
This card's good.
Yeah, it's nice. You don't want too many of them because it does have diminishing returns, but nabbing a 2-drop is pretty nice. Nabbing, there's enough things that you can nab often enough. Like, especially in your more
thankfully, Reaper's Talisman is not making a return here, but
yes.
But that was one of this card's greatest hits. Was okay, I can snag that if it exists.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is. I mean, it's like this trades with their 2-drop, or a lot of times when you have a valuable thing. I guess this also, without class enchantments, this has fewer targets as well, right? That was
it gets a little worse.
Gets a little worse, but this is still probably like you're not loading up on these. You'll play one happily, I think, though.
Yeah, so that's like a C.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, next up
we got Borsker.
Nice.
What is this?
I think it's Borsker. Yeah, Borsker's about.
Borsker Tollkeeper. 1 white for a 3/1 Orc Knight. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals all creature and land cards in their hand. Choose one of them. That card perpetually gains. This permanent enters the battlefield tapped. That is so much text for like nothing.
Kind of cute, which I guess is not worth all that text, but yeah, I like it. I like this card as a card. You get to make your opponents slow them down on their mana a little bit, or make their next blocker that they were about to play not be able to block that turn. That's kind of cool.
Boa Reskier is a pronunciation I'm being given for this. It doesn't matter because I don't like this card, so I don't need to say this ever. This is worse than the 2 common. This is worse than the common 3/1 and worse than the common 2/1.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. There's gonna be Well, here's the thing: it's gonna be spots where you cast this and your opponent's got like all 3-drops in hand. You make their land come in tapped, and then it's just like, wow, that was brutal. Like you stone rain them pretty much. Not quite because they get to use their land the next turn, but there's gonna be times when this card is brutal. On average, though, I think it's just gonna be kind of whatever.
Yeah, I think this is like a D plus.
It's a 3/1 that your aggressive white decks, if those exist, might want this. So yeah, I think.
But aren't X1s kind of like
true
a little dangerous in a set that has Shambling Ghast and Pilgrim's Eye and
many other things that we haven't gotten to yet?
Right.
Yeah. All right, I'll join you at D+ there.
All right.
This next one though, this is a cool one. So Rescuer Chwinga. It's 2 mana 2/2 with flash. And when it enters the battlefield, you may return another permanent you control to its owner's hand.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet that it's permanent, so it can like I mean, I don't know why that will end up being relevant, but that's nice that it's not just creature, that it's another permanent. Yeah.
Pick up your what's it called? Prophetic Prism, right? Draw a card.
Ooh, me likey. It's hard. It's just hard for this to be bad. Like, it's just 2-mana 2/2 is whatever, a D plus, a D. And then this has like synergy with a lot of stuff, rebuying ETBs. I think this is good.
Yeah, once in a while you ambush a 1/1 or something like that, and you save your thing from a removal. Like, that's the nice thing, right? You play this on 2 if it's your 2, or later in the game you draw it, you hold it for a while. You're gonna get some amount of value from your opponent, casting a combat trick, and they would win the combat, or they cast a removal spell. You get to pick up your creature. I think this card is good at most points in the curve, right, or most points in the game. So I think this is a solid C+.
I agree. C+ for the swing.
Yeah, like I like the name in the art as well. It's cool.
So good, yeah. Next up is Guiding Bolt, 2 and white for an instant. Destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. Scry 2.
So pretty good cost for this effect.
Smite the Monstrous we usually get for 1 more mana without the Scry 2.
Yeah, and the obviously the limiting factor here is how often are you going to see a 4-power creature? Remains to be seen. All of the specialized creatures tend to turn into larger creatures, so that might be something, but those are uncommons and rares. I think this is probably good enough to main deck. Like, one of the things about Smite the Monstrous is sometimes there isn't a target and you just can't really cast it. Maybe you have to wait a while to cast it. And then when you do cast it, it's like, okay, my removal spell turned on, and it's like, fine, whatever. With this card, it's like, okay, maybe you have to wait a while, but you get a little bit of value. The Scry 2, especially if you are waiting a while, is almost a real card at that point. So I think that this is a card I would probably look to main deck, where Smite the Monstrous isn't always.
Yeah, I'm usually a lot more hesitant about main decking cards like this.
Yeah.
But I don't have to worry about that because I'll be playing almost exclusively best of 3. So what are your thoughts here? You think you're gonna main deck 1?
Yeah, I think this is probably good enough to main deck 1. Probably still just the C, but it's solid.
Do you like this more than Minimus Containment?
Hard to say. Like, yeah, I don't have a good pulse on that, but I guess what I would say I am.
That's kind of like, I feel like I'm being like, do you like lunch or dinner more? Like, they're just like,
it depends what we have.
These are different things. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, my gut says I like this better, but it remains to be seen. We'll see how many targets this actually does have.
Okay, I'm gonna go sideboard. What are you going? C?
And go see, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I agree. Dinner's better. Next up, we have Rally Maneuver. 2 and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Up to 1 other target creature gets +0/+2 and gains lifelink until end of turn. Was this an AFR? Where did we see this?
It was, yeah.
It was
an AFR.
Was this card good?
Not particularly.
Right?
No.
Yeah.
It definitely had its moments. Like, there's a lot. I've been saying that a lot this set review, where it's like, yeah, there was some games, but again, going back to on average, how good will this card be? Not good. Not that good. You can imagine spots where you get a stick blowout. You get to eat their creature and eat their other creature. You get +2 when they blocked. Your 2/3 on their 2/3. You get to kill their creature. Yours survives, and you get first strike to something. But I don't know. It's not. Or I guess that doesn't matter because the first strike is going to the +2. But for the most part, this is just a kind of clunky-ish combat trick. It's a totally fine card, but nothing exciting. Nothing to write home about.
I agree. All right, so another D.
I think so.
Okay, cool.
Next up, we've got Scouting Hawk. This is a 3 mana, 2 and a white, 1/1 flyer. And it says, when it enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you search your library for a basic plains and put it onto the battlefield tapped.
No.
Yeah, so
how is this an uncommon in white and Pilgrim's Eye is a common that's colorless?
Well, you see, Ethan, white doesn't always get ramp, so they're like, ooh, let's give white a little bit of a treat, but it's still not that good.
I didn't even read this card, but I just assumed that its name being Scouting Hawk and this being alchemy, that this was gonna like conjure a copy of Scouting Hawk into your hand or something, right? It's gonna
or just like conjure a plains or something like that.
Yeah, this is gonna be a Squadron Hawk type deal. No, I don't know. Boo. Big thumbs down for this card.
I'm gonna give this an F, because the thing is, this is the kind of card that it's good on the draw, right? Like, if you're always on the draw with Knight of the White Orchid and Loyal Warhound, which are cards that did similar things to this, 2 drops, you were like, okay, well, on turn 3, they've got 3 lands. I go play this, get an additional land. That's fine. I've played a 2 mana 2/2 or a 2 mana 3/1. With this, you have to, if you're on the draw, this is your turn 4 to get an additional land, right? So on turn 4, you get a land, and then you've played a 1 mana or 3 mana 1/1 flyer. That's just not a good rate. So
it doesn't even come into play untapped. You can't even then play a 2-drop.
Right. Exactly.
No, all right. F.
Yep. I'm with you there.
All right, Moradin's Disciples is 3 and a white for a 2/3 dwarf cleric with double team, and when it attacks, tap target creature defending player controls.
That's exciting.
That is.
So it kind of gets over the natural, or jumps through the hoop of this needs a profitable attack, kind of somewhat naturally. You get to tap down their creatures, so your double team creature actually gets in and gets that second copy. 3 mana or 4 mana 2/3 tap something down. It's not the most impressive, but it's still a solid aggressive creature when you get another copy. So I think this is one of the better double team things we've seen.
I think so.
And
this helps enable future double team. Or current
exactly.
double team. Like if your Derpy 2/1 didn't have an attack at one point, it's just been sitting on the battlefield, then maybe now on turn 5. Yeah, I mean obviously 4 mana 2/3 is a bad blocker, but it's not the worst. I think if these get worse as you move up the scale, right? 4 mana 2/3, like better than a 5 mana 3/4, certainly better than a 6 mana 3/4 with flying. Like these the cheaper and below rate they are, the less egregious they are. Much like if we want to think about Mayhem Patrol, like sure, sometimes it doesn't block, but sometimes it can trade with an X1 or whatever. Like, I'm not going crazy for this card, but it does seem kind of good.
Yeah, I think I would give it a C+. The other thing too is it plays like tappers that attack play well with other tappers that attack, because the problem with them generally,
much like this finding another copy of itself.
Exactly. Yes, because generally what happens is like, okay, I can attack with my 2/3, block down their 4/4, but they also have a 3/3 still. Well, once you get that second copy, both of them can't block. So
yeah, 2 of these on the battlefield is going to be kind of nightmarish, I think.
This next one is pretty nice. So we've got Sea Tower Imprisonment. This is 2 white for an enchantment aura. Enchant creature or planeswalker you don't control. When the imprisonment enters the battlefield, conjure a card named Soldiers of the Watch onto the battlefield. That's the 2/1 double team creature. Enchanted creature, or enchanted permanent, can't attack or block, and its abilities can't be activated. So we just saw Sleep with the Fishes, and this is, dare I say, better than Sleep with the Fishes. Maybe even because the fish was unblockable.
Fish is unblockable.
Yeah,
but
still.
Yeah, it still seems sweet to me. At the very least, like the free 2/1 attached to this, that then you can, like, let's say you have a bit of a wide board. I think that's the thing maybe we want to talk about with double team that we haven't yet, is that if you have a bit of a wide board, sure, your opponent may be able to eat your 2/1 for free, but then they're doing that in lieu of also taking 5 damage. And then you're also drawing another 2/1 into your hand that you get to deploy again. So sure, is the 2/1 going to be outclassed a lot of the time? For sure. But its presence may allow you to push more damage than you would have otherwise. Plus, you just get this arrest effect as well. Yeah, I'm in for this. This seems like a B+ to me.
Yeah, I would start it at B+ as well. I think it's good on the offense. It's good on defense. I think it's just good.
yeah, for sure. Next, we have You're Confronted by Robbers. It's 3 and a white for an instant. You can choose one, tap up to 3 target creatures, or create 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. Yo, have fun with this in best of 1. Like,
what do you mean?
Just like, oops, I win.
Oh, just like a tap down falter kind of effect.
Yeah, just like always having main deckable falter effect that you're always having to think about when your opponent is playing white cards.
Yeah, this is a nice one.
Yeah, this is good. Like,
yeah,
both of like this is like one of those. These modal cards are fun because are always good and limited, but the ones that are really fun are the ones that either have modes that are only good in very different situations.
Yep.
Or modes that are like 80-20, 90-10. And this is probably likely to be like an 80-20, like 80% of the time, 90% of the time, you're making 3 1/1s. But the 10% of the time that you tap up to 3 target creatures, you're winning the game. So have fun with that. Have fun with this having an insane game in hand win rate on 17lands.com. Like,
I mean, I think it's good. I don't think it's ridiculous, though. You know, I think I like the card. What would you grade it?
I don't know, like a C+.
Okay, yeah.
Like it's probably the best. It's probably the best 4 mana thing we've seen. Other than the removal spell we just saw.
Sure, yeah.
The best 4 mana thing we've seen.
It's got a lot of flexibility, right?
Yeah.
Either just end of turn, they make some attacks, and they're like, "Huh, they had 4 mana up," and they go to attacks, and it's like, "Okay, didn't do anything." And then end of turn, you flash your 3 things in, or you make some blocks. You trade, like this can just trade off for 2 things, right? That's pretty easily. And like you said, right,
ambush and X1 and have 2 1/1s lying around. Like,
that's great too. Yeah. Maybe maybe I'm talking myself up on this a little bit.
I think this might. Yeah, I'm gonna go B-. I think this card is very good.
Me too. Yeah, and there was a bunch of cards that we said before. Well, if there was maybe more of a go wide theme, this would be a little bit better. Right. Well, here we go. Here's your go wide in a box here. So yeah, I like B+. Or sorry, B-.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we got Pegasus Guardian. This is another adventure card. It's a 6 mana, 5/8 for a 3/3 flyer. It says at the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you control left the battlefield this turn, you make a 1/1 white flying Pegasus token. And the adventure side, the instant is a 1 white instant. Exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control.
Okay, so a little flicker has rescued the foal, and then the Pegasus Guardian is a 6 mana 3/3 flyer. If something left the battlefield, you make a 1/1 flyer. 6 mana 3/3 flyer is tough for me to get behind, and I see you like gearing up to ask me about the 6 mana 3/4 flyer at common. Is that what you're doing, or no?
I wasn't actually. No, okay, I was kind of tussling with this one too. I think we were very much on the same page where we can see it's got some potential, but
unlike the, like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just gonna start like C- on this.
I think it's a little bit better than so. Yeah, this is one of the tougher ones we've had. So I think just the rescue the foal part of it, where you can reuse your Priest of Ancient Lore or save a creature, whatever it is, that's going to happen some point before 6 mana. So I think this naturally, unlike the other flyer we saw,
right,
you're not you are probably at some point in the game going to be able to use 2 mana to good effect. And then if you got a little bit of value out of that, maybe you blank the removal spell like that, you've gotten a good interaction earlier in the game. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at here, because the adventure side of this helps you in the early game in some regard, puts you ahead some way, puts your opponent behind some way. You can swallow the pain of casting a 6 mana 3/3 flyer that you hope to untap with a little bit easier, is my thought, right? And that 6 mana 3/3 flyer does have a good ability.
I mean, I guess also if you have I'm struggling with how reliably can I get the 1/1 the turn this comes into play? Because I'm a lot more excited with 6 mana 3/3 flyer plus a 1/1 flyer.
Right.
That then perpetually, right? Because this doesn't care about tokens, as someone in chat said, that like you can always get like your free attack with the 1/1 flyer, right? Because then they eat it, and then you get a free one, and maybe you're triggering other things as well.
Treasure, if you care about that, we haven't mentioned that with this permanently
sure,
the
you could do like
thing.
White black treasure, maybe
red white or something like that. Maybe red white doesn't want this card.
Oh, but, yeah, you could ramp this out and get the I
think there's enough stuff going on with this that, like you said, if you can get the Pegasus the turn it comes down, that is pretty good, because 2 stabilizing bodies, maybe not, doesn't break their team, but it does mean you can chump with the 1/1 that turn. Mm-hmm. So I think I do like this card. I want to start this. There's enough going on that I think I want to give it a C+.
All right, I'm gonna go C, but I'm you talked me up a little bit.
All
Next up, okay, here we go. Here we go. How are we doing this? We tag teaming?
That's a great question. Yeah, let's do one. We do one. I do one. You do one on each of these.
Okay, so there's there are 2 6-sided uncommons in each color. So we've reached our first one here. This is Lulu Forgetful Hierophant. So I'd say, I guess the other question is, how do we want to check in with? Do we want to check in on each side? Do we want to check in on just the front side and then read all the back sides?
Yeah, I think we'll check on the front side first, and then we'll see what happens on the back sides.
Okay, so Lulu Forgetful Hierophant, 2 and a white for a 1/3 legendary creature, Elephant Angel, with flying, has specialized 2. All of these 6-sided cards have specialized 2. The specialized ability, as a reminder, is to discard a land or spell from your hand that matches up with the backside. So if it's a mountain or a red card, then you can flip it to the red-white side, etc. So specialized 2, that's what they all have. When Lulu Forgetful Hierophant enters the battlefield, you get a boon with, when you cast your next creature spell without flying, it perpetually gains flying. So 3 mana, 1/3 flyer, gives you this boon, gives the next creature without flying. That's very good.
So let's stop there, because there's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
But like you said, I like this front side. Just 3 mana, 1/3, make your next thing flying. That's nice. Let's just talk about specialized to front load a lot of stuff here just quickly. So, I think just to make it clear what you were saying, it's not like you have to have a red card to flip it. There is a backside for every color. So there's Lulu, and there's a backside that's white, there's a backside that's red-white, blue-white, green-white. It doesn't matter where you draft it, you're always going to be able to flip it into something. And if you want to flip it into the red-white side, you discard a mountain or a red card with this. For same with any other color, you get to choose what you want to flip it into. Also, if you discard a gold card, you get to choose one of the, if you use a blue-red gold card, it doesn't matter. You can choose the blue card, the blue side, or the red side. So there is a lot going on here on first glance. But I actually think, and this has kind of been the big upset of this format or of this preview season, people being like, oh my gosh, 6-sided cards. As much as we're like bemoaning this now, I actually think once you draft and play with them, it's a little bit easier to grasp because you don't have to know every single backside. You really only care about, oh, wait, what am I going to flip it into? What could my opponent flip it into? They're a red-white deck. Let's see what the backside is. And the other nice thing is if they're not completely different cards, they're pretty much the same cards on the backside with a slight, like one extra different line of text, right? So, as I don't think this is a good idea or they should do it ever again, to be honest. But at the same time, for our purposes of learning, it's not too bad.
I mean, if they never made a 6-sided card, we'd always be like, where's my 6-sided card, Watsy? What's the point of alchemy if you can't make a 6-sided card, Okay, exactly. So this front side, good, I would say. Like, if this was all it did, this is probably C+ territory. Yeah, like you're paying a premium for the rate. We're used to paying 2 mana for a 1/3 flyer, but this ability, like granting the next creature you play that isn't a flyer to be a flyer, is pretty darn good.
Yeah, I agree. So
worth an additional mana. Okay, so next up, we've got. So for all of these, I ordered them with the monocolored version first, and then Wooburg order.
Okay, so the white side of this, so if you discard a white card and pay the specialized cost, becomes a 4-mana 2/4 flyer. Whenever you attack with one or more creatures with flying, you gain twice that much life. So this thing attacks alone, you gain 2 life. That's kind of nice. Also, worth small little rules thing here. The backsides change their mana value, their mana cost. All that means, it doesn't matter for the most part, but if this gets bounced, it actually goes back to your hand as the same thing that it flipped into, that it specialized into. So you'll recast it as, for example, here, the white version on the backside.
Right. Okay.
All right, and then what does the blue-white version of this do?
Okay, Lulu Curious Holophant, 4 mana, 2/4, so 2 white blue. Whenever you attack with one or more other creatures with flying, draw that many cards, then discard a card.
Okay, that's not a bad. Yeah, that's kind of nice. The white version, by the way, chat saying the white one doesn't gain life if it attacks alone. All these are other flying creatures.
Yes. Okay.
White-black is 2/4 flyer. Whenever you attack with one or more other creatures flying, each opponent loses that much and you gain that much life. So it's kind of like the white side, but it drains.
Mm-hmm. The red-white one is 2/4 flyer. Whenever you attack with one or more other creatures with flying, create that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens that are tapped and attacking.
And then finally, the green side is 2/4 flyer. That whenever you attack with one or more other creatures with flying, those creatures get +2/+2 until end turn.
Someone's asking, why do the backsides have casting costs? So if this is in your hand, can you specialize it as well?
No. So it's like I was saying. The only reason they have casting costs is, let's say your opponent bounces the Lulu and you've already specialized it. You have to recast it as, like, it forever becomes that side.
Or if it dies, then you recur it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, I got you. Okay, very cool.
All right.
So these are all okay. So with all of that out of the way, so this is it's the 1/3 flyer, specialize it, turns into 2/4 flyer with these various abilities of caring about other flying creatures attacking. That all checks out. I like this as a sort of little chain of events here.
Yeah, I guess something worth thinking about is you do have to discard it as a cost. It's not just it's not just free. So you're down a card at some point. Now maybe you've drawn additional cards, or the backside of these cards are good enough that it's just like, I've upgraded my creature well enough that I don't mind discarding a card, but it's something to think about.
Yeah, I think this all lines up for a B- for me.
Yeah, I think so too. So a little solid on all the sides. Like, and that's the other thing too. Most of the backsides are pretty balanced. Like, It's not like you really want the blue one or anything like that. Like, once in a while we'll get to that. But I think for the sake of simplicity, most of the backsides are approximately similar power level. So yeah. Sorry, what was the grade?
I said B-. Like,
I
pulls
so
me
too.
into white, I think.
I think the one last piece of rule baggage I have to impose upon everybody here is specialize is sorcery speed. Worth noting.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the other white specialized card.
Let's do it. So this is Rasad, Monk of Saloon. So this is a 3-mana 2/2 with specialized 5. When Rasad enters the battlefield, exile target creature and opponent controls until its creature leaves the battlefield. So, we've got like a brutal Cathar, Banisher, Priest kind of effect, which, are generally pretty decent.
Great. Okay, so let's check out the backsides. First up, we've got Rasad Radiant Monk, which is 2 white for a 4/4. When this creature specializes, target creature card exiled with this creature perpetually loses all abilities and has base power and toughness 1/1.
Okay, so then the blue version is when it dies, you make 2/1/1 blue fairy tokens with flying. It's a 4/4 as well.
They're all 4/4s, I believe.
Yeah, they're all 4/4s.
So the black-white one is a 4/4 that says when it dies, you make a 4/1 black skeleton creature token with menace.
The red one is when it dies, you make 3/1/1 white soldier tokens.
And the green one, finally, is a 4/4 that says when it dies, create 2/2/2 green boar creature tokens.
Yeah, so the idea here is your opponents often want to kill your Banisher Priest cards, or your Lagrella, I guess, to use a common example. And just like with Lagrella, it's like, well, if I kill that, they get something in return, and that's not so great for me. So that's kind of the idea here.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet, too.
Yeah, the front side is just good on its own.
Right.
Like, I'd give that a B+, maybe, and then the back side, yeah.
Wait, no, you hate Fiend Hunters. You don't give...
I used to hate him. I'm a changed man, Ethan.
Well, what happened, sir? This is news to me.
Yeah, I like him. I like him now.
Yeah, okay, that's it. He just likes him now. Great. Well, do you have my address? I don't have I didn't get my apology letter. It's probably just like because international. It's probably,
exactly.
Probably taking a while.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that. This seems great. I think this is like a B+.
Yeah, I think so too. And we can see from these last two cards, like I said, the backsides are fairly similar in what they do. This just shortcut. This flips into, hey, now your opponent doesn't want to kill this thing.
Right.
So
exactly.
Yeah, I like B+ on this.
All right, powering on through to blue. We've got Hypnotic Pattern up first. Single blue for an instant. Target creature perpetually gets -2/-0. Target creature gets -2/-0 until end of turn.
This is it's kind of raises some alarm bells for me in a good way. Like, so the idea here with these kind of cards generally is you make your opponent's thing smaller and you win a combat, give it -2, and your 3/3 no longer trades with their 3/3. Your 3/3 wins the combat. But then also being able to make their 2-drop not really a creature anymore, make it not a 2-power creature, that's kind of powerful. So even if it's just in a defensive deck where you're saying, all right, your 4/4 attacks me and I can block your 2/4 now because I have a 3/3, and then your 2-drop no longer has power.
It's just dead weight. Blue gets dead weight.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit dead weight. Yeah,
not really, but like much like sensory deprivation is not Swords to Plowshares, but like it seems good.
Yeah, I'm a fan of this. I don't think you can go too wild with it because I don't think they stack all that nicely. Like giving -2 to all your opponents' things won't work out all the time because your opponents eventually will have some larger things. But I think the first copy of this, maybe even.
But then in that spot, you can give something -4/-0 until end of turn.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know. I think this is a lot better than these effects tend to be. At least the ones that don't just draw a card, because those are generally okay. So
C?
I don't know.
C?
Yeah, I think C is solid for this.
Also 1 mana? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. 1 mana is big.
Yeah.
Kind of a similar card up next. We've got Undersimplify. 1 and a blue for an instant. Choose target spell. If it's a creature spell, it perpetually gets -2/-0. Counter that spell unless its controller pays 2. So we've got a make disappear variant here.
I think this is good. I hate to say it, but I think this is good.
Are you gonna break the bad news to Ben that quenches are good?
I mean, I don't think Quench was good in Ravnica Allegiance. I still think these are like set dependent or context dependent, but the fact that this isn't just dead in the late game or against certain decks makes it pretty, like, that was what made Make Disappear stand out to me. I think it was that, like, the fact that the casualty one made it so it wasn't dead in the late game, and there was like sack fodder, like you wanted your lackey to get to the yard, whatever, blah blah blah. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so like what you're getting at here is, well, maybe you can't counter in the late game their 2-drop, but you kind of can because another 2-drop is a 0-power creature.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I'm into this. I think this is just good. Like I think
this is just good too.
Yeah, I guess maybe there's something to be said for the fact that maybe your opponents are going to be spending turns activating an ability because their specialized cost. They go 5 mana instead of cast a spell, and this is like, well, that doesn't do that much. But I think this is probably one of Blue's better commons. Just looking a bit ahead, maybe it speaks to Blue not being all that great in my opinion, but I think this is a pretty good card.
Right, I was like, all right, what changes are we gonna see to the blue cards? And then I saw so many reprints.
Yep.
I'm gonna go C+ on Undersimplified.
Okay, yeah, me too. I like it.
Cool. Next up, we have Wizened Gith. Oh my, what? Wizened Gith Zerai. Sure. 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Gith Monk. Has Psionic Adept, which means whenever Wizened Gith Zerai becomes blocked by a creature, that creature perpetually gets -2/-0.
It's a theme here with these blue commons that they really like giving creatures perpetually -2. I don't know. I think this is an okay card. Like it's this weird card that wants to attack, and your opponents are kind of disincentivized from blocking. I mean, this doesn't get blocked very easily, right? Because your opponent's 2/1 can't trade with this. So it's sort of plays nicely in.
Well, and
like,
also I mean, just also thinking about they can't gang block it too, right? Because everything that blocks it gets
So they need to put a large creature.
They need to put a 3 power, 3 toughness thing in front of this to not trade.
And then that thing gets smaller.
That thing is a 1/3 or whatever.
The question is, how often does a blue deck want to attack with their 2-drop? I think is what it comes down to.
It's a good question. I don't know. And there could be a spot where like blue decks don't often want this, but there is one blue drafter at the table that wants all of these. Like
right, exactly.
Where you're like trying to get like 5 of them or something. I don't know.
If your blue deck is looking to be a little bit aggressive, like it's looking to attack, this is a solid card, I suppose, right? But I don't think, just looking at the card pool here, that's going to come up that often for blue decks. But just note that this isn't you shouldn't play this card. It's a fine card, maybe just to trade off. I think I'm going to start it at C-, but there's definitely, like, if this was a red card, I think you'd be more interested in it, for example.
Oh my gosh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Dragonborn Looter, 1 and a blue, 1/2. Dragon Rogue, and you can pay 1 tap, draw a card, then discard a card. Nope.
No, not so. Even though it has types, not so into it.
Oh, I guess it is a 2-mana dragon. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe if you really cared about that, I don't know if the dragon payoffs, and we've seen some of them already, are good enough that you're like, well, I'm going to play this card I wouldn't already play. And like that's the thing about synergy decks. Sometimes you have to think about, like, is my synergy payoff good enough that I want a card I wouldn't naturally want in my deck? And I don't think, for the most part, for the dragons we've seen, or we will see, that's true. And this card, this kind of effect, 2-mana looter that you have to pay mana into, isn't particularly good. So I think this is just a D.
I think so too.
Next up, we got once again, this one isn't perpetual, but more -2. Shocking Grasp. 1 and a blue for an instant. Target creature gets -2 until end of turn. You draw a card.
It's just wild, right? Like, what is with all this -2/-0 stuff? It's like 4 of the last 5 cards.
Yeah.
I mean, draw a card on this is good, but this is worse than
Startle? Is that?
Well, certainly worse than, I mean, it's just strictly worse, obviously worse than Startle, right? But like, I mean, we don't get like a Majestic Metamorphosis variant is what I'm saying. Like, I feel like people, but I think coming off of Suit Up into Metamorphosis into this, people might go, oh, this is the cantrip combat trick.
Yes, and it's not that.
No, it's not.
No,
I mean, it is, but it's not.
Yeah, I think there with Metamorphosis and Suit Up, like blue decks, even a more defensive blue deck, could get away with that card, or wouldn't mind playing those cards because it helps your smaller things trade up. This doesn't do that, right? This just helps a small creature not lose a combat against an equally regular sized creature, or evenly sized creature. And again, I don't think blue decks are all that interested in that, so I'm pretty out on this. I think I would guess you don't want to play this card, so I would probably just give it an F.
Yeah, ooh, F. I love it.
Yeah.
Just laying down that ban hammer. All right, I'm gonna go D.
I remember this card not being like very good at all last time,
yeah,
and I maybe F is a bit too harsh. Sure, maybe a D.
But I like the sentiment behind it.
Okay, yeah, then I'll stick with my F then.
Okay. Tamora's Invoker is 1 and a blue for a 1/3 orc rogue, and it has sleight of hand. I do like the Invoker callback here with an 8-mana activation. Draw 2 cards, but I do not like this card.
Yeah, 1/3 sits around, does nothing for a long time.
This is a really rough look for blue in the 2-drop department. It has a 1/3, a 1/2 looter, a -2/-0 trick, and then a quench variant.
I guess the counterspell.
The counterspell is good. The counterspell is blue's best 2-drop again.
So even if the format does pan out in a way like I was talking about, where it's a little bit slower, a little bit rampier, there's just better things to do than 8 mana to draw a card, right? Or 8 mana to draw 2 cards, and this 1/3 body that presumably can block well early. 1/3 just doesn't block that well early generally. So I'm pretty out on this.
It's not like, again, part of the reason that like a 2 mana 1/3 is good is if there are aggressive decks, right? That you're like, well, I just need something to stabilize. It's like, but I'm not even. Does anybody have good 2-drops? I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think this is another like D.
D-. Yeah, not into it.
Okay.
All right. You come to a river. 1 in a blue instant. You choose one. Either return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand, or target creature gets +1/+0 and can't be blocked this turn.
What a dramatic reading. So much pausing. So good.
I was just trying to get the words out, to be honest. So,
what do you think about this one?
This has slightly new context in the sense that this plays pretty well against specialized creatures, right? Your opponent spends a card and mana into their specialized creature, and you bounce it. Now, I guess then again, like I was saying before, if they bounce it, it comes back as the backside anyway.
Cast the thing, right? I mean, but usually it does seem like the front side is what has the ETB effect, and then the backside has the leaves effect, or I guess in the sense of the white one, the 1/3 flyer, the attack effect. But yeah.
It's a tempo blowout, right? It's more of a tempo blowout than if your opponent just like cast another creature onto their board. Like having their board doesn't grow any bigger when they activate the specialized, and then you're reducing it further. One they've spent a bunch of mana. So I mean, I don't think that moves the needle all that much. I think this is still just like a D+ level spell, but worth considering. Yeah,
there was a time it was like Ixalan, or I guess it was really like AFR, Amonkhet into Hour of Devastation into Ixalan Rivals, where I was like that Windsor of Rebuke era where I was like, you just like blue decks always want a bounce spell.
Right.
I think we are past that point. I don't think that's the case. I think the prevalence of ETB effects in modern limited, or in, I don't know, neo-modern limited, whatever age we're in now, this is not that great.
Yeah, I think I'm on board with you. It wouldn't be the worst if you had to play this card, but not a card I think you're actively looking for.
I'm going to go D on You Come to a River. Next up is Blur. 2 and a blue for an instant. Exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. Draw a card.
Well, once again, it really depends on what's in your deck. If you've got some great ETBs, this is probably solid. If you can line it up well against a removal spell, probably solid, but you've got to be in a good spot to do that where you can leave your mana up. If not, it's a little bit clunky.
Yeah. I think I'm going clunky.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to land clunky here.
If this was 2, I'd like it. But
right.
3 is just...
Why can't it be 2?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, all right. I think I'm going D again on Blur.
It might be a little bit too obnoxious to be like 2 mana counter spell draw card, right? For a removal spell. Or against a removal spell.
Blue needs all the help it can get right now.
Yeah, clearly.
The best card is Undersimplify.
Ethan, it's your boy. He's back.
I love him. I love this
Clever
guy.
Conjurer. 2 and a blue for a 2/3. It has an ability, untap target permanent not named. Clever Conjurer. Only activated as a sorcery.
I only need to activate it as a sorcery in my second main when I untap my Lurking Roper, baby. Get wrecked.
Back too.
Get wrecked. This card's not good. I mean, it's not good. Like I'm gonna play a bunch of them, but it's terrible. It's a terrible.
Well, yeah, I'll say it again. If there is a space for a ramp deck, this does get a little bit better. Where I think in AFR that wasn't so much there. But yeah, this isn't a great card. It's a filler ramp creature if you need it.
Yeah, this is another D.
Yeah, blue is not looking great for blue. It was very bad last time, and it looks like it's not gotten that much help.
How about Pseudo Dragon Familiar? 2 and a blue for a 2/1 dragon with flying, and you can pay 2 and a blue to have target creature gain flying until end of turn.
Curious what makes this a pseudo dragon and not just a dragon.
Seems a dragon.
Yeah, it looks like a dragon to me. So 2 power flyer for 3. It's a wind drake. That's not not very impressive. And then in the mid to late game, you give something else flying. Again, this is kind of got the thing where I don't know how much the blue decks just really want this effect, right? Like, they're not that aggressive looking. And if you just think about the pairings, I don't think many of the blue pairings are very aggressive either. Maybe blue-white potentially, or blue-red, but...
I remember, 15 years ago being like, 3 mana 2/1 flyer seems a little steep.
15 years ago, yeah.
Right? Like, how is this still a stat line?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not that impressive. I think this is better than the other cards we've seen, to be fair, but I would still just give this.
This is worse than Undersimplify.
Yes, for sure. For sure. Oh, sorry. I was just talking in generality. So it's like, better than the bad cards we've seen so far. Yeah.
Good clarification there. Good.
Okay, well, what do you want to give this?
I want to give this a D plus.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. Again, it's got types. It is a dragon. But...
It does have types.
Yep.
All right. She's back.
Soul Knife Spy. It's a 2 and a blue 3/2, and when it deals damage, you draw a card.
Yeah. What happened to these cards?
Yeah, I feel like that's been all of the cards we've talked about.
Well, but
back in my day,
Scroll Thief used to be a card. Like Ben and I argue about Scroll Thief all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Was there a Scroll Thief variant in Neon Dynasty 2 that wasn't good?
Most likely.
Like,
if I
just feel like we argue about these kinds of cards in every set, and he's always like, "Yeah, Scroll Thief. What would you give it?" Oh no, it was the octopus from Neon Dynasty. The 3-mana 2/2, and then you could reconfigure it.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was.
And I was like, "That card's terrible," and Ben was like, "No, it's Scroll Thief or whatever." It's just like these effects aren't good.
So I mean, what's changed is that you don't have to work so hard for your card advantage. That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like you just don't need to hope to hit your opponent with your 3-mana 3/2. You can just have cards that are adventures, or there's a lot of things, Priest of Ancient Lore style. Like those are the good cards these days.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
sad time
another
for Soul Knife Spy.
Another D plus.
Yep, I think so.
This is abysmal. Great. Cancel. You find the villain's lair. 1 blue for an instant. Choose one. Foil their scheme to counter their spell, or you can learn their secrets by drawing 2 and then discarding 2. Hey. Bag of Holding on 1. Then turn 3. Draw 2, discard 2. Turn 4, concede.
I love how we've got to the point in set review already where we're just hysterically laughing at every card. So, yeah.
And we're not even at green yet.
Yeah. Usually that's green for us.
Yeah.
We're like, what is this? Yeah. I mean, this card wasn't particularly good last time around. Counterspells get better if opponents are casting a bunch of expensive stuff, which that looks maybe should be a little bit more the case here. Just like with the family fixers in Streets of New Capenna, with adventures, you kind of see the big thing coming. So, what does that say for you find the villain's lair? It probably still just means I want to play undersimplify. So,
yeah,
I think this is also probably a D.
I agree.
All right, next up we've got Lizard Folk Librarian. Here's a new one. 4 mana for a 2/4, 3 and a blue. It's got double team, and when it enters the battlefield, you scry 2.
What? I mean, this seems like whatever.
Yeah, I don't hate this card as much as the others. Like, it comes in, it scries you a bit. It's a good blocker and a pretty good attacker for the purposes of, do I have an attack that doesn't just kill this thing, right? Like, you'll be able to attack with your 2/4. It's going to be kind of difficult for your opponent to block this. And then you get another one, you scry more. Again, it's this weird mix of, like, all these blue cards that want you to turn your thing sideways, but that's clearly not what blue wants to do. So, I don't know. I don't think this card is too bad. I think this is a serviceable 4-drop, but it's still just a 4-drop all the same. I would probably give it a C. And maybe we're underweighting double team just across the board.
So that's a fair thing to think about. Like, because I do think while you're saying, like, it's not hard for this to have an attack, it's also not hard for them to trade with, like, just be like, whatever, block with 2/2/2s.
Right.
And you trade. Mm-hmm. But then you have another 2/4 and you're scrying 2 again.
That's good. Yeah, your opponent doesn't want to trade there. Right.
They don't want to trade there. But, like, they have to because then they're facing another 2/4. Maybe this is just good. I was thinking that, like, yeah, this is all fine, but it's still a 4-mana card that I'm not that excited about. But it also, like, does block well, too.
Like, the play pattern is it comes down, it blocks well, and then it has the attack, and you draw another. And that's pretty good. Like, I think this is so totally solid. And maybe the knock is it's 4 mana. But for your 4 mana, if there isn't a lot competing there, I think this is like a C in that slot.
Okay, just because I feel bad for blue, I'll give it a C.
Okay, great. The pity C. Love to see it.
Next up is Water Weird. 3 and a blue for a 3/4 elemental weird. When it deals combat damage to a player, you put a +1/+1 counter on Water Weird if the top card of your library is a non-land card. Otherwise, you may mill a card.
Okay, so...
But so Arena just knows?
Arena just knows. You don't get to know, but Arena knows.
So it's... Okay, so... If the top card of your library is a non-land card, this will become a 4/5.
When it deals damage.
When it deals damage to a player. Then you will know that the top card of your library is a land, and then decide if you want to mill it or not.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so it, in a very weird way, scries you, but you don't actually see what the non-land is.
This is such a convoluted way to explore digital-only design space. This seems like whatever again to me.
Yeah, it's a 3/4 that weird scries and gets bigger. Your opponent, like this plays in not the same space actually as the last creature, because the last creature when it attacks, your opponent is disincentivized from blocking your 2/4 because you're getting another 2/4, and it's like, well, they're up on cards already. I don't want to be trading here. Like when your opponent draws cards, you don't want to trade on board. You want to keep your board because you're not winning the card advantage war. This plays in a different space because it's like, okay, when I attack, I scry, I get value. Your opponent wants to block this, so you're not getting the counter very often, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm lower on this by quite a bit than the last
one. Oh, for sure. Yeah, this seems like a D. A D.
I think so too.
Okay.
All right. Contact other plane.
Thank God.
3 in a blue. Another reprint. Instant. Roll a D20. 1 to 9. That was the first time we're doing D20s here. If you roll at 1 to 9, you draw 2 cards. 10 to 19, you scry 2 and then draw 2 cards. And if you hit that nat 20, scry 3, draw 3.
No. And there's not even dice rolling synergies to like trick yourself that this is good.
Right, it's actually probably good for the players because they can't trick themselves into putting a bad card in their deck.
Right. We were just talking about how I'm like just out on divination in general, and now this is 4-mana divination.
Yep. I would give this a D-.
I agree with D-. All right, this next one is good. This is Rhyme Shield Frost Giant, 3 blue for a 4/5 giant warrior, and it has Ward 3. This card is stable Mabel right here. It's very hard for you to stick this on the battlefield and not at least shore up some ground attacks from your opponent.
I had a stint at the end of AFR when I was the last person in the entire world playing AFR on Magic Arena, where my blue decks just looked like, counter spells on 3 and a bunch of as many Rhyme Shield Frost Giants as I could possibly have, because you counter their cheap things. This comes down. It's pretty hard to deal with, and it attacks pretty well. Mm-hmm. So, it's as far as 5-drops go, this is a decent one. They can't just one of the problems with 5-drops that don't have ETBs is your opponent goes, all right, just 3 mana, kill that thing, and I attack. Can't really do that with this. So
unfortunately, it has blue in the casting cost, and we've given I think like 12 of the 15 blue cards we've seen Ds. So
fair criticism.
I don't know if. I mean, you can give this a C+ if you want, but I don't know how often you're playing blue here.
No, I would still just give it a C. Yeah.
All right.
Next up, we got Young Blue Dragon. This is a 5 mana, 4 in a blue, 3/3 flyer. It's got an adventure though. Sand Augury, 1 in a blue sorcery, scry 1, draw a card.
So sorcery speed opt.
Yeah, sorcery speed opt. So you've got in long term here, your 7 mana, 3/3 flyer. Draw a card with the installment plan.
That's pretty good. I think
this is pretty good. Yeah. This is definitely, when you compare it to the 4-mana card draw spell that we saw, Contact Other Plane. This one definitely shines because it comes with the creature.
Unfortunately, this will be snapped up by the red-green dragon player who's trying to splash this.
Right, exactly. And I also think it looks like a pretty exciting card anyways. Just like, draw a card, fire. Like, this is the kind of card that people tend to pick highly, even though maybe it's not one of the better cards. So I don't know. I think this is probably more in the C+ territory. Like, I think this is a good card.
I think so too. I'll go C+. Again,
Thanks.
the pity C+.
Yeah, exactly.
Air Cult Elemental is back. 4 blue for a 2/5 elemental with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, return up to 1 other target creature to its owner's hand.
Maybe if it gets a little bit better in the world of a bunch of 3-mana accelerants and 2-mana accelerants once we get to green. Just being able to cast this on 5, that's a big difference. Like, again, going back to my stint with blue decks, I do remember liking this card quite a bit. Like, the problem with
this was an overperformer, I think.
Yes, agreed. The problem with the blue decks generally is like surviving the earlier turns, but this thing blocks and stabilizes you pretty well. So I do like this card. It's not as good as any of the Manowar style cards we've seen in the past little while, but it's still pretty good. And especially if you do survive those early turns, this does shut the door or stop your opponent from attacking you really well. So I think this card's a C, and especially if you have mana accelerant, to get a little bit better than that.
I agree. I'll give Air Cult Elemental a C. Okay, a little technical difficulty here. We skipped over 1 common. We've got Charmed Sleep here as 1 blue for an aura. I even referenced this earlier. I made fun of this card earlier, and I didn't even have it in my spreadsheet or in the slideshow. It's 1 blue for an aura. When enchanted creature or when Charmed Sleep enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature. Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step.
Yeah, so we're not super a fan of this kind of effect. It's like bad blue removal that's blown up by a million things. You know, it depends on the set context. There's some sets where there's less stuff that blows it out. There's some sets that there's more. But in a set with a sacrifice theme and a blinking theme, I'm pretty out on Charm Sleeve.
I am as well. So I'm going to just, between all the other Ds, just going to give Charm Sleep.
Slot it right in there.
Just slot it right in there.
It's got company at least,
For sure. And then we're going to actually, because I mistakenly put this, we'll start at the top of the curve or near the top of the curve for blue's uncommons. We'll start with Sword Coast Serpent, which is 5 blue for a 6/6. It's a Serpent Dragon. It says Sword Coast Serpent can't be blocked as long as you've cast a non-creature spell this turn. And it also has an adventure. Capsizing Wave is 1 and a blue, return target creature to its owner's hand. So you have a bounce spell, and then you have a 7 mana 6/6 that can only attack, or that can't be blocked as long as you've cast a non-creature spell this turn. So sort of, I guess, plays with some other adventure creatures as well.
Yeah, when I first read this card, I made the same mistake. It's like, oh, it's a giant sea serpent that can't attack. And like, oh, no, this isn't 1995 anymore. We're good.
Right.
Yeah. It's very similar to what I was talking about with the White Pegasus, the 6 mana giant flyer. This kind of plays in the same space where you get the front side or the adventure side gives you some time to be able to cast your giant 6 or 7 mana thing. So that's a nice little combo. And having an unblockable 6/6, yeah, that's nothing to sneeze at. So I like this card.
Yeah, this does seem good to me. I think I would give this like a C+.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, okay, sweet. What do we got next?
Goggles of Night. So this is an equipment, 1 and a blue for a weird blue artifact here. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you scry 1 and then draw a card. Equip 2.
So we've got like this and the Thieves' Tools equipment that we'll see later. Common as part of this like on-hit effect thing that blue-black might be doing, but I think no is my answer.
Yeah, I think that so just to go back to the blue-black thieving deck, when they hit you that you're referencing, I think that deck wasn't so good the first time around, like we mentioned, and these cards that they added, Goggles of Night, I don't think really helps. Like
it's really hard. Like at least Thieves' Tools. So the thing about Thieves' Tools that I think was nice was that your creatures already had these on-hit effects, like Soul Knife Spy or whatever, Yuan T Malison or things like that, and then you just needed a way to sneak them through. This is like the opposite.
Yeah,
but if I already have a creature that's unblockable, I'm happy with that, right? Because it's limited. I don't need Goggles of Night as well.
If this was like 1 and 1 to equip, like casting cost, I think you're onto something here. But 2 and 2 is just so brutal for this effect. Yeah, so I think this is like an F.
I think this is an F as well. Yeah. Next up is Guild Thief. 1 and a blue for a 1/1 Orc Rogue. When it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And it has an activated ability of 3 and a blue to make it not be able to be blocked this turn.
It's so funny when you mentioned you and Ben argue about Scroll Thieves. I remember very vividly Ben being like, "Oh, Guild Thief, it's good. It's a Slith. The guild deals damage. These cards are good." And you being like, "Is it though?" So
don't think
very similar.
2 mana 1/1.
Yeah,
can be that
we
good.
got like 2 mana 1/1s that need some time to grow. Even though
I'm kind of feeling bad. I'm like, should we just like give this card a higher grade? Like,
just because,
is it possible that blue is worse in this set than it was in AFR?
Ooh, don't say that, Ethan. Don't say that.
Is that possible? Because it seems like it might be. Yeah, I mean, Guild Thief is not that good. It's not
not good at all.
No. It's in fact not good at all. Yeah, I think.
In fact, quite bad. I would give this like a D-. Yeah,
I think so. Okay.
I've got Ray of Frost. There's another reprint. 1 and a blue for a aura. It's got flash and enchant creature. When Ray of Frost enters the battlefield, if the enchanted creature is red, you tap it. As long as the enchanted creature is red, it loses all abilities and it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. Or sorry, that's not part of if it's red. It's just any creature can be tapped down.
Right. So it's a enchanted thing. It doesn't untap, and then
you can put this on any creature regardless of the color.
And it doesn't untap. But
if it's a red creature, it will tap it and it loses the abilities. Yeah.
No. But also, this was a part of a cycle of color hosers. But the cycle is gone?
The cycle is gone. Yeah, I think this, maybe this is, there's one other, but I'm pretty sure no. We'll see, I guess, when we get there.
So weird.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't too bad of a card. Like, being able to have flash on this effect is much better than Charm Sleep, even though it doesn't tap it down. You still have to get hit by it once. And when you do face a red deck, this is, for most intents and purposes, just like a 2 mana blue removal spell. I guess if they blink it or flick or sack it, then
still
it's
not good. But this is still like.
I remember being okay with main decking this card and not being like thrilled about it, but it was fine. Like I'm not gonna give it a high grade again. It's probably like a D plus, but I like this better than Charm Sleep.
Yeah, that's not saying much. I was about before you said D plus. I was about to ask you to compare it to Minimus Containment, but I think,
sure.
I think you answered my question. All right,
you see, Ray of Frost doesn't ramp your opponent even.
That's right.
Next up, we got Seek New Knowledge. This is an instant, 1 and a blue. Seek 2 non-land cards, and then put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. So again, Seek is just draw 2 non-land cards. You can't draw lands with this, and then you filter away something.
I'm kind of into this. I was like, well, what's the point? Well, because Seek is draw, but you can, because it's digital only, be like, I'm not drawing lands with this.
Yep.
So yeah, this can always be like draw 2 spells, and then you can discard a land card or discard a spell.
We were talking. Oh, good.
I think that's pretty good.
We were talking a little bit about how raw card draw has kind of come and gone, right? It's definitely below the bar in Modern Limited. The exception is if your raw card draw is very cheap, right? 2 mana
and guarantees cheaper. That you're not going to hit lands, which is
right.
Often,
that's a big thing too.
And sometimes you have your hand is 2 lands and a bunch of expensive stuff, and you want lands, and this card is not going to make you a happy camper.
Right. Yeah.
But I think by and large, your card draw is generally there to refill your hand in the mid to late game, and this does that nicely.
Yep, I like it. It's not up cards from a card advantage perspective, but it's up card quality, right? Generally.
Yeah.
C plus.
I'm gonna go C, I think, but yeah.
All right, cool.
C plus sounds good.
Next up, we got Dream Fracture. 1 blue for an instant. Counter target spell. Its controller draws a card, and you draw a card.
So was that Arcane Denial?
Yeah, I believe that's the same card. Yeah.
So, just to clarify, this is card parity, right? This trades with the card you're countering, then your opponent draws a card, you draw a card. And in theory, because you'll be countering a card on their turn, most likely, that they will have used most, if not all, of their mana for, you will get access to said fresh card a turn sooner than they will.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, for all intents and purposes, I would say, a cancel.
Yeah, it's a counter spell. So it's a counter spell that ramp decks or decks that are going big appreciate, because the idea is you are able to use the extra lands or the extra spells a little bit better than some other opponent, right? You're playing this big game as opposed to opponents like playing a smaller, small ball attrition game potentially. You like both players getting an additional resource, right? So that's kind of a slightly more nuanced way to think about it. But for the most part, yes, it is just a cancel with card neutral card drawing.
So another D.
Yeah, maybe a D plus. I would say, just to give it a bit of a bump. I think it deserves it. But
sure, that sounds good. Next up is Kenku Artificer, 2 and a blue for a 1/1 bird artificer, and it has the keyword homunculus servant, which just says when Kenku Artificer enters the battlefield, you put 3 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target non-creature artifact. That artifact becomes a 0/0 homunculus artifact creature with flying.
Ooh. Put it on your Prophetic Prism.
Yeah, exactly. Prophetic Prism, turn 2, cantrips, and then Kenku Artificer comes into play and turns it into a 3/3 flyer that can attack.
Now, you've got to have enough non-creature artifacts in your deck to
warrant playing a 3 mana 1/1.
Exactly. But if you can, this is a good card.
So this is... it's not even quite... It might be quite build-around territory.
I would say build-around territory. Yeah, you kind of, like, if you pick some of these up or you get them late, you're going to be
if you get like 2 artificers, then you're like, beer me as many spiked pit traps. And
yes.
Prophetic Prisms obviously are awesome. Sure, it can animate treasures.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, treasures are a good point.
I'm kind of in for like build around B on this, to be honest.
I would say so too. Yeah, if you can get this to the point where it's consistently 3 mana, 1/1, and a 3/3 flyer, that's a really good card.
But like, again, I guess I don't wish that this was 1 blue because then I would never cast it. But the fact that this is 2 and a blue means this is quite splashable in other decks.
Sure, yeah. If maybe you're like a red-black deck, red-black treasury,
red-black treasure splash this.
Right?
That doesn't seem crazy.
Oh. Well, I like this card because at least give us a conversation.
Yeah, then just like D, garbage, dump it. Yeah.
Next up, you got Lapis Orb of Dragonkind. So this is part of a teamer cycle. This is 2 in a blue for a artifact. It says tap, add a blue mana. When you spend this mana to cast a dragon spell, you scry 2. So once again, another ramp spell.
So this is a cycle in blue, red, green that have these Orb of Dragonkind. So 3 mana, blue mana rock. When you cast a dragon spell, scry 2.
Hmm.
Nah.
not so into it. Like you'd
Yeah,
have to have a
not
lot
really.
of dragons in your deck to justify this over a one of these, a manolith that makes any color or just a cheaper ramp spell.
Clever conjurer. Shout out to
Sure,
my
even
boy.
clever conjurer is better than
I
this,
mean,
right?
really, yeah.
This is probably even in that spot. Like, let's say you have 6 dragons in your deck, right? Those cards are still probably better than this.
Right. You just got to say draw card. Not.
I think
scry,
this is an F.
Not scry 2. I think F sounds good to me.
That's an F.
All right, Alex, we're really not arguing that much, and I'm a little disappointed.
We did a decent amount of arguing in the white cards, I'd say. We'll come back to minimus containment after this if we don't meet our arguing quota.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, we'll have a little post credit scene here.
Yeah.
Next up is Irenicus's Vile Duplication. 3 and a blue for a sorcery. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except the token has flying and isn't legendary if that creature is legendary.
This is pretty cool. So it's like just think of it like a clone, except. So it's got the downside of it gets blown out by an interaction spell, whereas a clone can't. It has the upside of you gain a keyword ability in flying. That's kind of interesting. I don't. So clone for your own thing is a lot worse than clone for anything on.
We will often see that effect at 3 mana, right?
Right. So you're paying a bit of a premium on that, and yeah, you have to be careful when you cast this. But the nice thing, just like I was talking about with boons, how granting a +1 to a flyer is really nice. Granting flying to say a 4/4, which normally you wouldn't include that in its mana cost. A 4/4 for 4 doesn't get flying, or on a creature with a good keyword ability that benefits from flying. Let's say lifelink, or maybe a soul knife's 5 potentially.
Sure.
Right. That is something. Does that amount to a card I want to put in my deck consistently? I think it depends on the cards you're targeting, right? I think it depends on how much you care about giving flying to something. Because if you got a bunch of small creatures, it doesn't matter that much, unless that thing you really care about hitting.
Yeah.
But if you have good things to target, like a blue-green deck, yeah, I think this is a good card.
Yeah, all of your caveats make me not super excited about this card. I'm going to be honest.
I would start her to C.
C, all right, I'll join you at C. That seems fine.
Okay.
What do we got next here?
We got a good one, Ethan.
Okay.
We actually found a good blue card.
Okay.
3 blue for a 4/3 flyer, and it's got the ability word Confounding Clouds. The card's name is Juvenile Mistdragon. And it says, when Juvenile Mistdragon enters the battlefield, for each opponent, so just one, tap up to one target creature that player controls. Each of those creatures doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So for people who played Ravnica Allegiance, it's a Chillbringer, but it's got an extra point of power.
Yeah, I'm into that.
Great.
I mean, these 5 mana cards that lock a thing down for a turn have just generally been good.
And it's a dragon. I should say that too.
And
That's
it's a
relevant.
All right.
Maybe you couldn't tell by the name.
That's like a B minus, a B.
I would give it a B. Yeah. I think locking down something in high powered flyer is a good combo.
I agree. Next up is Draconic Lore. This is 5 and a blue for an instant. It costs 2 less to cast if you control a dragon, and it says draw 3 cards.
So we've been talking about this. Raw card draw. If this always cost 4, how much do you like it?
Honestly, not that much.
Not that much. Yeah.
Like,
it would still just be okay.
It would be fine. Yeah, it'd be fine. Like, but we're gonna get that in black, right? Draw 3, lose 3 life for 4.
Sure. Yeah. Ambitions cost is a card we'll see soon. I think a lot of the time it's not going to cost 4. It's going to cost 6.
I think a lot of times it's going to cost 6, or it's going to be nothing because it's going to rot in your hand.
And after you've got your dragon, I mean, there's cheap dragons. Don't get me there's the uncommon blue-green dragon. But I was going to say, after you've cast your big dragon, do you need to have a refill? Usually you're pairing card draw with other ramp or removal spells or something. Usually when you're ramping out to a big dragon, that's your thing. That's your top end.
It's a really good point. Someone in chat is saying that the 1 blue draw spell that we saw, the seek 2 non-lands and then bottom of thing, that's better than this.
Oh, for sure. I think just always
lot.
2 mana. Yeah, for sure. Even though that doesn't actually net you a real card, and this does, the mana is a huge part of this equation.
Another D? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, let's say you're on the higher side of dragons. You do have 6 or 7 dragons in your deck, if you're lucky. At that point, it's probably more of a C- if it's almost always 4 mana. But yeah, I think generally this is going to be a D.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right, now we get to our fun cards here. First up is Allura Rogue Companion. 3 and a blue for a 3/2 legendary creature halfling rogue, and its specialized cost is 2. It says whenever you attack, up to 1 target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. At the beginning of the next end step, return that creature to its owner's hand. Okay, so it lets you get an on-hit effect if you want, even the turn it comes into play. But with the downside of, or potential downside, think about curve this Priest of Ancient Lore into this, attack with your priest, it's unblockable, rebuy your priest, recast it, whatever. I'm just, everything we say is like, well, it makes Priest of Ancient Lore better. Cool.
Common denominator there.
So I'm not crazy about this front side. 4 mana 3/2 is very bad stats, and this effect is like pretty medium, I think.
Yeah, all of these rogue thief cards have the deadly combination for you, the damning combination of doesn't block well and also has a hard time attacking. It's not a good combo.
Right. So, okay, well, let's see if any of the backsides.
Yeah, so the blue backside here, if you just discard a blue card or an island, is she's a 5 mana 4/3. Whenever you attack up to one target attacking creature, can't be blocked this turn, return it to the end step, same thing. And then if you do, a creature of your opponent's choice gets perpetually -1, -0.
Sorry,
so that's kind of
a creature of your choice an opponent controls.
Sorry, yes, a creature of your choice that your opponent controls.
That's fine.
Yeah, making it a little bit smaller. That's not a bad thing, especially if you're able to do it repeatedly.
Sure.
That's not too bad. So what's the white version here?
The blue-white one is a 4/3. Whenever you attack up to one target, attacking creature can't be blocked. And then at the beginning of the next end step, you return it to its owner's hand. If you do, you make a 1/1 white soldier creature token. Fine.
Okay, so that makes up a little bit for diminishing your board presence. The black version, same thing at the beginning text. The unblockable, then return the thing. And then if you do return a creature, your opponent loses 2 life.
Yeah, okay. Next, we've got the red version, all that same text. If you do return the thing, create a treasure token. Yikes.
And then the green version is, if you return the creature you return gets perpetually +1/+1.
I mean, come on.
This is like tempo loss on top of tempo loss because you're specializing, so you're spending some mana, right? And you're picking something up. Oh boy! Even the specialized cards that I think are generally very good. Maybe can't say
this
blue.
is bad.
Yeah, I don't love this card. I think
I'm not excited about any of these.
No, nothing about this is great. It's got a nice specialized cost, but again, you have to discard a card to specialize, which maybe isn't the worst in the late game. You've got a land you don't care about or a spell that's situational, but it's still something. Yeah. I think I'm pretty out on this. I'm gonna give it a D+ because I think there is some potential for this to be an okay card, but man, nah, I'm off this.
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, bring us home here at the end of blue.
Yeah, so its second uncommon specialized creature is Val, Eager Scholar. So this is 3 mana for a 2/1. It's got specialized cost of 5, so pretty hefty. Tap, draw a card, then discard a card and put a study counter on Val. So it's kind of a looter, and you get to put a study counter on. And I'm assuming the backside tells what the study counters do. Mm-hmm. The just blue side of Val, you discard a blue card. 4 mana, 4/3. When this creature specializes, remove all the study counters from it. Look at that many cards from the top of your library, put one of them into your hand, and the rest of them on the bottom of your library in a random order. And it's still got the tap, draw a card, discard a card ability.
But that doesn't, I guess, no, because it's already specialized. You can't then re-specialize. Okay.
Yeah,
fine.
You can't go back.
So the blue-white version is a 4/3. It still has the loot ability on it. And when it specializes, you remove all study counters from it when you do distribute that many +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures.
That's kind of nice. The black version says when you remove all the study counters, you put target creature with mana value less than or equal to the number of study counters removed this way from a graveyard, so any graveyard, onto the battlefield under your control.
Okay. The red version, when you do, it deals damage, or that much damage equal to the study counters to target creature or planeswalker and opponent controls. Okay.
That's a nice one. And then the green one says when you remove the study counters, seek 2 creatures with mana value less than or equal to the number of study counters removed this way, put one of them onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. This seems like the best one by quite a bit. The green side here. You get to draw 2 creatures and put something on the battlefield.
Yeah.
So let's go back to the front side here, the looter.
Okay.
3 mana, 2/1 looter. How good is that?
3 mana, 2/1 looter is not good.
No, it's not terrible, but not amazing. And then if you just have the blue side where you get to draw a card from the top view, that's not amazing. The white one where you spread out counters is fairly good. If you've looted maybe 3 times, you spread out some counters. That's pretty good. The red one where it kills a creature, I like that too. The black one, you reanimate the creature, plays nice with the looting ability. And the green one, like I said, I think that one is pretty nice.
I'm going to assume that I know the answer to this, but just to clarify. So let's say, I play this on 3. Say I loot on turn 4, loot on turn 5, and then specialize. This is still tapped, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it doesn't.
It's the same piece of cardboard. Okay.
Exile. Yeah. Oh, worth noting. I think I maybe was reading this a little. I don't know if I read it wrong, but I'm thinking about it wrong. The green version, it seeks 2 creatures, but you only get to choose one of them.
Right.
So
that's
yeah,
still good. I mean, I don't like a 3-mana 2/1 looter.
No.
I do like the backsides of this. Like they're all various kinds of value. I mean, the white one, I'm not that excited about a couple +1/+1 counters, but I am excited about picking off an X2 or, you know, getting a creature or whatever.
Yeah, and I guess it's worth noting, like you said, an X2, because that's going to be the normal. Like you're gonna by the time you. I mean, yeah,
unless you're letting this sit around for a while, but that's probably a game you're winning anyway. Like,
yeah.
And specialize, yes, is sorcery speed.
I think I'm more into this than Allura, but I still think I'm not that into it.
Right, so I think C-.
Yeah, C- is where I would land too.
All right, and that is going to do us for part 1 here.